Chapter 191. The Disappeared 100 Tempering Mountain Merchant Ship. High in the clouds, a wide flying ship was traveling steadily. A few young Foundation establishment cultivators were surrounding a well-dressed youth and chatting and praising him. This was the usual way of interaction among the disciples of the 100 Tempering Mountain. These Foundation establishment cultivators were all inner sect disciples, but from the moment they chose to join the 100 Tempering Mountain, it meant that they would never experience equality in their lives. As time passed, the disciples of the 100 Tempering Mountain formed such a relationship. The disciples of the two families oppressed the inner sect disciples. The inner sect disciples attacked the outer sect disciples, and the family disciples and inner sect disciples bullied the outer sect disciples together. Trials were not terrifying. The terrifying thing was that ordinary disciples would never have the chance to escape the identity of the victim. This was very despair-inducing. The only fortunate thing was that there were many ordinary disciples in the 100 Tempering Mountain. They might not necessarily bully one person alone. Cultivating to this extent could only be said to be aggrieved. At this moment, a disciple suddenly felt uneasy. He looked in the direction of the flying ship's bow and inexplicably felt a little uneasy. "Senior brother, do you think the two demonic cultivators from Shu Mountain will attack our fleet?" There were many merchant ships in the 100 Tempering Mountain. It was impossible for them to arrange for Golden Core cultivators to escort each ship. If they were really hit by those two, they would definitely not be spared. "What are you afraid of? You're still too young. Two demonic cultivators scared you to this extent." That well-dressed disciple smiled with disdain. "Think about it carefully. Those two guys only attacked merchant ships from a few small sects. Who are we? We're from the 100 Tempering Mountain. In this great mountain region, there are not many people who dare to go against us. Even if the Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak does things, they still have to seek our 100 Tempering Mountain's opinion. It's just two sword cultivators who have fallen to the demonic path. They definitely won't dare to provoke us. If you follow me in the future, you have to be braver. If you embarrass me outside, you'll suffer." Yes, senior brother is right. This senior brother was very confident. In terms of confidence, he had indeed surpassed the Shu Mountain disciples. How could the other disciples dare to refute? They also cooperated and agreed. "Hey, what's this?" At this moment, they discovered that outside the spiritual chi barrier of the flying ship, there were suddenly many white wisps. The well-dressed youth walked to the edge of the fence and reached out to pass through the cover formed by spiritual chi, touching the biting cold air outside. Then his palm turned cold, and a white wisp landed on it. "This is snow." He pulled back his hand and was a little stunned. A ball of white snow was slowly melting in his palm, quickly turning into a puddle and disappearing. "Senior brother, is it snowing? I didn't expect to see such beautiful snow in the sky." The flying ship of the 100 Tempering Mountain did not change direction because of a small change in the weather. It directly collided into the airflow of snow. Although there was a spiritual chi barrier, the temperature on the deck quickly fell. "It's really snowing, how is that possible?" However, not everyone was so heartless. They did not realize it in a short period of time and also felt a strong sense of strangeness. They looked at the clouds. Sure enough, they were covered in dark clouds. However, the problem was that they were now flying above the clouds. The sky was bright and the sun was bright. Below were thick dark clouds. How could the snow float up to the flying ship from below? This was extremely unreasonable even in the cultivation world. Something was amiss. The vigilant cultivators observed the environment carefully. Then they discovered that there was something wrong with the dark clouds below. "Damn it, there are ghosts in the clouds." In the dark clouds, countless ghosts were densely packed and roaring greedily at them. When the few Foundation establishment cultivators saw this scene, their scalps instantly turned numb. "Call the elders, call the elders." Amidst a sharp cry, a black coffin with some color in it descended from the sky and hit the flying ship that was still traveling at high speed. Boom! The coffin pierced through the emergency barrier with unparalleled might and crashed into the flying ship with unstoppable force. In an instant, more than 10 decks were pierced through. Even the hardest and most important central dragon bone at the bottom was shattered on the spot. A disciple courting death actually dared to look at the situation in the hole. Looking down, with just a collision, a huge hole was created in the expensive flying ship. The flying ship shook violently. The dragon bone was broken, and 70–80% of the array formations on the ship lost their effectiveness. The most important offensive, defensive, and acceleration array formations were all down. Only the floating effect remained, preventing the entire flying ship from crashing. This was the might of the Yin burial coffin that had already pierced through the limit of a profound rank artifact and was transforming into an earth rank artifact. Although this coffin was not an offensive artifact in essence, it contained a vast amount of high-grade spiritual qi. This made its weight extremely shocking, and its might was boundless when thrown out. The Yin burial coffin was very well used for such a sneak attack. Then, a cultivator with a mask and a pure white body landed from the sky and stood on the deck. The few disciples on the deck looked at the person who came in shock. Although they did not know each other, the pair of lifeless eyes under the mask made them instinctively tremble. Swoosh! Before the flying ship could sound the alarm, a freezing cold wave instantly engulfed the entire flying ship. In an instant, the merchant ship was completely covered in a thick layer of frost. The few disciples who bore the brunt of the attack directly turned into subtle ice sculptures. To them, just the spiritual qi of a golden core cultivator was an irresistible force. Damn it, who dares to attack our 100 tempering mountains flying ship? The two core formation elders finally stabilized the array formation of the flying ship and hurriedly rushed out. However, their hearts sank when they saw the enemy. It was a golden core cultivator. Fellow Taoist, please leave quickly. Otherwise, the 100 tempering mountain will not let you off. The two of them were still at the true core stage, and were still far from the golden core stage. Their cultivation level was inferior to the enemy, so their confidence plummeted. The two elders could only bring up the sect in an attempt to intimidate the enemy. However, their warning clearly did not work. The other party did not even bother to look at them. He did not have the slightest intention of paying attention to them and continued to release cold air. If this continued, the entire flying ship would be frozen, and the disciples on board would die here. They did not have time to think further. Under such circumstances, they had to give it a try even if they could not win. The two of them took out a crimson medicinal pill from their arms, and after hesitating for a moment, they stuffed it into their mouths. This was a traditional technique of the 100 tempering mountain. Their strength was not enough, so they had to make up for it using medicinal pills. The soaring spiritual qi gave them some confidence. They rushed towards the masked golden core cultivator from both sides. The two artifacts in their hands constantly emitted a terrifying heat. Boom, boom! With two loud sounds, the shock wave that erupted blew the entire deck into chaos. The few ice sculptures were even blown away by the air currents and landed in the dark clouds. However, when the airflow dissipated, their attack that was enough to shatter the mountaintop was blocked by two snowflake-shaped ice shields. Among the variant spiritual roots, wind focused on speed and lightning focused on attack. As for ice, the specialty was its defense. At that time, in Cloud Stream City, Elder Duan Shuang, who was injured, had relied on his outstanding ice attribute defense to forcefully resist the lightning tribulation and delay the three elders of the scripture storage valley. Now that time had passed, things were the same and people were different. The ice attribute golden core had long fused with the zombie core, becoming a heavenly lightning indestructible zombie core that was hard to come by in 100 years. Not to mention that the power was several times greater than before. The opponents he faced were only two true core realm cultivators. It was really difficult to give him any considerable pressure. He casually detonated the ice shield and blew the 200 tempering mountain elders away. The terrifying cold air froze their faces until they turned purple. The shattered ice even scratched their bodies. In just one round, the difference between them was obvious. The 9 nether clone did not pursue them and slapped the deck instead. The flying ship suddenly shook. Under the power of a golden core cultivator, it could no longer maintain its height and slowly sank into the dark clouds that were still churning with dense yin qi. If this flying ship sank, there would be no chance to see the light of day again. Countless ghost soldiers holding yin talisman blades pounced at the flying ship like sharks that had smelled blood, tearing everything inside. The vast number of ghost soldiers in the coffin made their first move and sacrificed 100 tempering mountain caravan. Recently, in the Nightless City, the reputation of the 9 nether clones' Green Mountain residents had risen. The high-end cultivation community of Green Mountain residents that he created did not directly affect the profits of the Nightless City. Instead, it became a highlight of the city and attracted a lot of fresh blood to come. Although the Green Mountain residence was churning countless spirit stones every day, there were really not many people who were jealous of it. This was because the spiritual qi supply of Green Mountain residents was really too generous. There was really no false advertising. The full high-grade spiritual qi allowed one to cultivate until they were satisfied. With a little calculation, one would know that this Green Mountain residence could only earn a little bit of profit, even when all the guest rooms were full. However, most of the low-level cultivators were still struggling to fill their stomachs. Some with small savings would only treat Green Mountain residents as a luxurious service. Only when they broke through in their cultivation realm would they come and get a temporary membership for a few days. Therefore, in the eyes of many people, Green Mountain ascetic was making a loss by promoting this business. He would probably lose quite a number of spirit stones every day. The business of losing spirit stones naturally could not be said to attract any greed. The only thing that made them curious was where did Green Mountain ascetic get so many high-grade spirit stones to squander at will. However, no one would attack a golden core cultivator just out of curiosity. At the very least, they would not attack so easily. The 9 nether clone also used this platform to get to know many golden core cultivators. The news that the 2-sword cultivator surnamed Zhuo had been loitering near the Nightless City recently would affect the prosperity of the city. Naturally, news had been forcefully blocked, and the lower-level channels were almost unable to know about it. He had also obtained second-hand information from one of those golden cores. When he heard this news, he knew that they were most likely the reason why the 2 golden core cultivators had come to the Nightless City. During this period of time, prosperous Jiang Hong and his 9 nether clone were constantly harvesting the other party's spiritual root seeds. He could take over about 50 people every 3 days. Currently, he was even preparing to speed up the process. Jiang Li intercepting the other party's spiritual root seeds like this was no different than cutting off its path to become stronger and destroying its great Tao foundation. This was an extremely vile act. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they were irreconcilable enemies. However, before the spiritual root matured to a certain stage, the spiritual root branch could not directly affect those disciples with artificial spiritual roots, nor could it directly understand who was behind this. The 9 nether branch could only determine the approximate location of their disappearance by sensing the spiritual root seeds. However, golden core sword cultivators did not have the ability to attack Nightless City directly, so they could only attack the merchant ship that was out of the city. Jiang Li did not have the intention to fight with golden core sword cultivators for the time being. However, Jiang Li had some thoughts about attacking the caravan. Recently, the 100 Tempering Mountain seemed to have obtained a batch of top-grade spiritual wood and planned to send it to the Misty Mountain range to build a vast stronghold. The advancement of the 9 nether would just happen to require a large amount of spiritual wood as supplementary materials. Since they were so generously placing these resources before him, Jiang Li won't stand on ceremony. After all, the 100 Tempering Mountain had offended him before, and they were just too vicious. In the 100 Tempering Mountain, there just happened to be Jiang Li's good friend. Moreover, this good friend's status was similarly not low. With his information, Jiang Li easily grasped the sailing route of the 100 Tempering Mountain merchant ship. Therefore, he did not tail them at all but ambushed them in advance. During this time, he even had the time to go to the Black Lotus Divine Sect and bring back the Sword Cultivator clone and the Usura's corpses. The only pity was that the two core formation cultivators were determined to fight to the death. The 9 Nether clone used all his methods and only captured one of them alive. After feeding him the spiritual root seed and putting on a mask, the Green Mountain residents in the Nightless City finally had a proper subordinate to use. Qin Shuman and a group of ghosts had always been needed to hold the fort. It was indeed a little embarrassing. Jiang Li was not afraid that the 100 Tempering Mountain would find him. Everyone knew that Green Mountain Ascetic was a wood attribute cultivator, but the one who attacked the 100 Tempering Mountain merchant ship was an ice attribute golden core cultivator. No matter how hard they tried, they could not think of this. The thick dark clouds slowly dispersed. There was no longer any 100 Tempering Mountain flying ship in this sky. 3 days passed in a flash. In these 3 days, Jiang Li had been cultivating his body, qi, and mind. With the help of the golden core status, this process was not considered difficult. He could sense that as long as he wanted to, he could take the final step at any time. Moreover, he had a Tao Foundation spiritual fruit in his hand. Foundation establishment was definitely not a problem. The problem was, what kind of Tao Foundation did he want to establish, and to what extent would he go? When he opened the door, Xianxia was already waiting there. She was clearly much more prepared today. She tied up her loose sleeves and was ready to face the challenge at any time. Chapter 192, Earth Vein Spirit Essence. Junior Sister Qiuhua, you look beautiful today. Jiang Li habitually praised her. Looking at the capable and experienced Shenshin Qiuhua, it formed a contrast with her petite figure, giving him a novel feeling. Although the young lady's face was still red, when faced with Jiang Li's praise, she was no longer shy and evaded it. The two of them flew together towards the location of the demon-subduing pagoda. In the Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak, all the disciples and elders rode on their swords. Their 2 legs were not much different from accessories. Coupled with the fact that the terrain of these 5 mountain peaks was too steep, there were often vertical cliffs in many places. It was not suitable to walk at all. It was possible that one could reach a height of more than 100 meters just by walking next door. Therefore, there was no staircase designed here from the beginning. The demon-subduing pagoda was not on the 5 peaks, but in the deep valley surrounded by the 5 peaks. This place was suppressed by the joint array formation of the 5 elements sword peak. If one was locked inside, even a peerless demon would not be able to escape. Even if the demons inside really escaped through some method, they had to consider whether they could withstand the siege of the Shu Mountain 5 elements formation. The two of them flew down from the top of the water element peak. After passing through the clouds and fog, the air below became more and more moist and dark. When he landed on the ground, a dense murderous aura made one's scalp go numb. If a mortal were here, they would bleed from their 7 orifices in less than a second. It was not inferior to the internal environment of the yin burial coffin. However, there were actually plants growing here. In such an environment with dense baneful aura, it was normal for there to be no plants, but there were many here. Jiang Li bent down and picked up a few plants on the ground. However, as soon as these plants left the ground, they withered and died before he could observe them properly. This was an interesting phenomenon. He had never seen it before. He casually threw away the withered grass in his hand. Who would have thought that there would be such a ferocious place hidden in this immortal mountain-like 5 elements peak? However, this was not corruption. nor was it hiding evil. Instead, they used their sect to suppress countless demons and devils, silently protecting the peace of the Great Mountain region. This was worthy of his status as the leader of the Shu Mountain righteous path. As Jiang Li sighed silently, he suddenly recalled something. I, Jiang Li, am also silently resisting the terrifying evil forces without anyone knowing. He recalled the spiritual root branch and the underwater graveyard. Not long ago, he had even destroyed a demonic cultivation sect that might make a comeback. Just now, he had even taken in the corpse of an Usra who could bring calamity to the Great Mountain region at any time. Come to think of it, he had made so many contributions to the cultivation world of the Great Mountain region, but he did not say anything. As expected, Jiang Li was a great person who has broken away from lowly self-interests. The two of them walked towards a white stone platform in the center of the valley. In fact, in this valley, the only thing that was higher than the ground was this stone platform that was less than 2 meters tall. There was no building that could be called a pagoda. Xianxia blinked her eyes and secretly looked at Jiang Li, preparing for his question. Although Jiang Li had already learned a portion of the situation of the demon-subduing pagoda through the memories of the sword cultivator clone, he still deliberately spoke after seeing the other party's expression and asked this little princess of the Xianxia clan for guidance. It turned out that this demon-subduing pagoda was not built upwards, but downwards. It was built using the earth veins of the 5 peaks. It was extremely deep and could not be seen. After all, this was a place where peerless demons were imprisoned. It was impossible to trap them with ordinary buildings or artifacts. However, relying on the power of the earth vein to build a cage was different. If he wanted to destroy the tower, he could not do it unless he had the ability to break the Shu Mountain's earth vein. Jiang Li could not help but feel admiration towards this. He did not know when his attainments in formations would reach the extent of being able to rely on the energy of heaven and earth. A huge spirit carving array formation was meticulously carved on the stone platform. With his current vision, he could see that this array formation was a compound array formation formed from at least 7 different types of array formations. The degree of precision and complexity was shocking. On the stone platform, there were densely packed talismans of various colors. There were not many types of talismans. They were basically used to exorcise evil spirits. It could be seen that Shu Mountain had been diligently managing this place every year to prevent the baneful aura in the tower from gathering too much. However, even so, there were too many demons in the tower. Walking into the stone platform, there was already a group of cultivators waiting at the center. Jiang Li also saw Chang Wanju standing beside Wei Wangxuan. Apart from him, there were also 8 other Shu Mountain disciples waiting. Clearly, they were preparing to enter the demon-subduing pagoda today. The demon-subduing pagoda was very important. Every time it opened, there had to be 5 peak elders present and a peak master presiding over it. The person in charge today was naturally Wei Wangxuan. Everyone waited quietly as the sun gradually rose above their heads. Because the Shu Mountain 5 Elements peak was so tall that it reached the clouds, the sun could only be seen at noon. This was also the only time the demon-subduing pagoda could be opened. The rays of the sun passed through the layers of clouds and mist in the mountain. When it scattered down, it was no longer fierce, but it also raised the vitality in this valley. At noon, the sun gradually illuminated the entire stone platform. At the center of the stone platform, a 5 elements array disk embedded in it automatically lit up. As an array master, Jiang Li was even slightly dizzy when he saw this light. This meant that even with his current mind attribute, he was still unable to understand this array formation. Wei Wangxuan took out a token and shot out a spiritual light. Then, the other elders of the 5 peaks produced spiritual lights in the order of the 5 elements. After the 5 elements completed their cycle, the stone platform beneath their feet began to shake slightly. Amidst the friction between the rocks, the 5 elements array disk in the middle slowly opened. He had just opened a gap when a baneful aura 10 times stronger than the surrounding environment spewed out. Among the 10 disciples, a few of the weaker ones were shocked until they took 2 steps back. One of them even sat on the ground directly. It could be seen that this fiendish chi was really extraordinarily terrifying. Among the disciples present, only the few who had already awakened their sword heart could remain calm. Remember, after you go down, don't touch anything you shouldn't touch. Demons are cunning and don't communicate with them. You can't pity or trust them. Remember to guard your mind and do your best. If you are unable to continue after paying respects to the pagoda monument, return immediately. Remember, you must not go below the 3rd level. Wanju, you'll go in first. After opening the pagoda, Elder Wei repeatedly reminded everyone to take note of things. After all, there were countless ferocious demons locked up in the demon-subduing pagoda. Even if they were firmly locked up, they had to be careful. If anything happened, there would be huge trouble. Elder Wei let Chang Wanju take the lead, but he showed no fear. He took 2 steps forward and glanced at the hole that was still spewing out baneful chi before jumping down. With someone taking the lead, the disciples behind became braver. The 10 Shu Mountain disciples jumped into the pagoda one after another, but Elder Wei left Jiang Li to the last. After Shenshin Kyuhua finished drawing, Jiang Li originally wanted to follow closely behind, but he was stopped by Elder Wei, and then a 5-sided token was handed to him. Kid, you're really as restless as your master. This is the token for opening the door on the last few levels of the demon-subduing pagoda. You're not a Shu Mountain disciple, so I can't say much. However, you still have to act within your means and not push yourself. Do you understand? Jiang Li touched the token and was slightly surprised. His master was really reliable. Previously, Jiang Li had roughly understood the situation of the demon-subduing pagoda and knew that under normal circumstances, Qi Refinement Realm disciples were not allowed to descend to the 3rd level or below. The baneful Qi and demonic Qi were too strong and were not something that Qi Refinement Realm disciples could withstand. However, Jiang Li was naturally not satisfied with this. In the beginning, he went to ask Elder Mu for help, but the other party rejected Jiang Li's request out of safety considerations. Because Jiang Li was a disciple of the Scripture Storage Valley, Shu Mountain naturally had to consider the responsibility if anything happened. They could not agree to it. This was the same reason why doctors had to have family member sign the forms before major surgeries. Therefore, Jiang Li had no choice but to use a communication spirit stone and call the Scripture Storage Valley. He got his master Elder He to contact Peak Master Wei. He did not expect it to really succeed. Perhaps other than Elder He, his performance in the heart-questioning sword cave last time had also made this Peak Master acknowledge his strength. He specially let himself be the last to enter the pagoda so that he could give him some special treatment and not let the other disciples feel unhappy. This was very thoughtful. Thank you, Peak Master Wei, I'll take note. After cupping his hands in thanks, Jiang Li put away the iron token and leaped down as well. After Jiang Li entered, the 5 elders immediately reversed the 5 elements, and the disc array fused seamlessly with the sound of friction. Wei Wangxuan waved his hand, and a golden pagoda phantom immediately appeared on the stone platform. It could be seen that on the 1st level of the demon-subduing pagoda, there were 10 light spots flickering slowly. Another light spot was falling from the passageway to the 1st level. Peak Master Wei, no matter how strong that Jiang Li is, he's only a Qi refinement disciple. Is it really possible for him to descend to the 4th level? An elder could not help but be a little curious. Peak Master Wei actually gave the access pass of the lower levels to a Qi Refinement Realm disciple. The Shu Mountain disciples possessed the Sword Heart. Every year, there were very few who could reach the 3rd level of the demon-subduing pagoda. The 4th level, or even lower, was it really possible? This Jiang Li's Sword Heart is extraordinary. He even has dragon blood in his body. We can't view him as an ordinary disciple. Jiang Li landed freely in the vertical passage. The intense airflow collided with him, blowing intensely at his clothes. Under the impact of this baneful aura, weaker chi refinement cultivators would either have their pants wet or faint on the spot. It was not impossible for those with less courage and a weaker body to die directly. However, to Jiang Li, he did not feel much. A few seconds later, Jiang Li's feet landed on the ground with a bang, stirring up a cloud of dust. He did not care about cushioning such a height. However, to his surprise, the stone slab beneath his feet was not damaged at all. The material was extremely hard. Not far away, 10 Shu mountain disciples were still waiting. Other than Chang Wanju and Xianxia, the rest of them looked a little pale. 2 of them even took off the flying swords on their backs and leaned on the ground. They looked like they could not breathe and were struggling. The demon subduing pagoda did not require disciples to fight the demons. In fact, demons in the chi refinement realm were not qualified to be here. They did not even have the right to be locked up tightly in the demon subduing pagoda. The worst demon among them was equivalent to a cultivator above the foundation establishment realm. However, even so, it was still not easy to move around in the demon subduing pagoda. Seeing Jiang Li arrive, Chang Wanju gestured for everyone to set off. Everyone nodded and walked along the passage towards the first level's monument. Thump tilde thump tilde. The footsteps of the 11 people sounded especially clear in the silent first level. After walking past 2 corners, they entered the prison area of the first level. The commotion outside clearly broke the silence on this level. Pairs of glowing eyes lit up from the shadows of the cage as they stared intently at the 11 people. A fierce and bloodthirsty light flickered within. Heavy breathing could be heard, as a large amount of smelly air was emitted from their mouth and nose. Bang! A wild boar demon suddenly rushed out of the shadows of the cage, its huge body suddenly crashing into the metal fence. The fence did not move at all. The runes engraved on it even lit up, burning the other party's pig skin until thick smoke rose. Oil could be seen flowing down the railing. However, the wild boar with red eyes did not seem to notice at all. Its pair of fangs rubbed against the fence and roared at them with a stench. One of the Shu Mountain disciples was so frightened that he stumbled back and crashed into the other prison door. From the shadows, a bare tail suddenly stretched out and wrapped around the disciple's neck, pulling him in with all his might. That disciple was strangled until his eyes rolled back. His neck creaked as if it would break at any moment. Slam! A hand grabbed the tail. It was Jiang Li who walked forward and stretched out his hand to directly grab the tail of the sneak attack. With a strong tug, the demon that was still hidden in the shadows could not resist the immense force and was directly pulled out and smashed into the rune iron pole. It was a skinny monkey demon. Its fur was sparse and covered in injuries, but its savage nature was still there. Although demons who had reached this level no longer needed to eat to maintain their lives like foundation establishment cultivators, their desire for blood did not change. As long as they passed by a living person, they would want to bite him regardless of the consequences. After the Shu Mountain disciple escaped, Jiang Li did not let it off easily. His hand exerted strength again, tearing off the other party's tail. Only then did the monkey demon fall to the ground with a wail and hide in the shadows. This monkey demon was very weak. It could not even kill a weak Shu Mountain disciple with a sneak attack, much less fight Jiang Li. After all, the demon subduing pagoda was not a retirement facility. After staying here for a long time, the spiritual chi would be slowly sucked away by the array and become weaker. Junior brother Chen, are you all right? Chang Wanju put away the golden light sword that was a step late and went forward to help that disciple up. That disciple might be timid, but he was sufficiently unyielding. After coughing out a few mouthfuls of throat blood, he did not heal his injuries and instead stood up to thank Jiang Li. Junior brother Jiang Li, thank you for your help. Please accept my gratitude. It's fine, it's nothing. Everyone be careful. After repeatedly reminding everyone to be careful, they walked deeper into the cave. As they went deeper, The dense beast aura became more and more pungent. Jiang Li gradually noticed that this cell was arranged in accordance with the array formation, and it was even more maze-like than a maze. If there was no special guidance, not to mention finding the target, it was hard to say if they could even return the way they came. Chang Wanju, who was walking at the front, led the way with a token. Jiang Li glanced at the iron token in his hand. Sure enough, there was a spiritual light pointing in his direction. After all, only Foundation establishment demon beasts were locked in this first level of the demon-subduing pagoda. As long as one was bold enough to suck blood, it was basically not difficult. Their group quickly arrived at their destination, where the first pagoda monument was. A rock that was more than 2 meters tall and had a slightly strange shape emitted a spiritual light. A few chains wrapped around it, tightly linking the pagoda monument to the array formation on the first level of the demon-subduing pagoda. Without a doubt, this pagoda tablet was the core of the array formation. In front of the pagoda monument was a meditation mat, which was where the fortuitous encounter in the pagoda was. After all, this was a benefit for their own disciples. Although it was difficult, as long as they were careful, there was no danger. Junior brother Jiang, please go first. You're a guest, and you even helped save junior brother Chen earlier. Please don't decline. Chang Wanju took out 3 sticks of incense and lit them before inserting them into the incense burner in front of the meditation mat. However, he did not sit down himself and instead gave it to Jiang Li. The few people from Shu Mountain looked at him. Even the few disciples with pale faces looked determined. They were humble and full of spirit. All right, I won't stand on ceremony then. Jiang Li nodded and did not reject their goodwill. He took the lead to step forward and sit cross-legged on the meditation mat. Along with the burning of the incense stick, a strand of strange energy was extracted from the stone tablet. The chain in front of him started to glow from the end of the monument, and it followed the chain all the way to the remaining meditation cushions. In the next moment, Jiang Li felt a force that was different from spiritual qi surge into his body. Absorbing the earth vein spirit essence of the 5 elements peak. Added status, earth vein spirit essence left feet. Earth vein spirit essence left feet slowly supplements the connate deficiencies and postnatal losses. Increases the success rate of foundation establishment. Small increase in the strength of the Tao foundation when establishing it. Duration, 30 days, -+. Chapter 193, Turtle Treasure. Jiang Li could sense that it was an extremely heavy energy. This energy had all 5 elements, and the quality was very high. The power of the 5 elements seemed to have formed a very stable balance, causing this energy to be abnormally safe and also have an indescribable inertia. After entering his body, it quietly lay dormant. Jiang Li could not activate it on his own accord, but he was still continuously emitting a gentle energy that slowly nourished his body. From the information on the interface, this energy should be the earth vein spirit essence of the Shu Mountain 5 elements peak. Its main function was to supplement the deficiencies and assist in reaching the foundation establishment realm. By using the earth vein spirit essence of the Shu Mountain 5 elements peak to build the foundation, it would be strange if the Tao foundation constructed like this was not sturdy and powerful. It seemed that the saying that the demon-subduing pagoda was constructed with the power of the earth vein was true. Not only could they imprison these demons, they could also draw out spiritual power to strengthen their disciples every year. The ancestors of Shu Mountain had really made use of the 5 elements peak to the limit. However, what did this earth vein spirit essence left foot mean? If one looked at this pagoda monument and compared these 2 words to the shape of this monument, it indeed looked a little like a leg. Jiang Li did not know the exact reason for this for the time being, but perhaps he could find the answer in the lower levels of the demon-subduing pagoda. The few of them took turns to sit on the mats. After receiving the earth vein spirit essence, Chang Wanju used the token to open the passage to the 2nd level. Inside, an even more terrifying aura immediately surged. 4 of the disciples immediately felt their legs go weak and their heads spin when they were assaulted by the aura. Obviously, they were already powerless to continue forward, and they had no choice but to return the way they came. On the other hand, Jiang Li and the others resolutely descended to the lower level. On the second level, the air seemed to have become sticky and heavy. The pressure on the disciples instantly doubled. It was completely different from the first level that one could pass as long as one was brave. This was because starting from here, there were already many demons who had formed demon cores. At this level, demons were already on the same level as high-level core formation cultivators. With the demon core, even if their bodies could not escape, they could already use their aura to influence others from afar. It was fine if there were only 1 or 2 of them. At most, they could weaken a few levels of strength. It was not difficult to brace themselves and charge over. However, with the number of demons, this pressure was almost materializing under the superposition. This overlapping aura even surpassed the pressure of a golden core cultivator. Even Jiang Li clearly felt the pressure under this situation. It was as if a huge rock was placed on his back, making him feel a little heavy. This was under the protection of the sharp sword aura field. Even he felt a little heavy. The few sword cultivators beside him, including Chang Wanju and Xianxia Qiuhua, performed even worse. Panting heavily, Chang Wanju was the only one among the 6 Shu mountain disciples who could stand steadily. The 4 disciples knelt on one knee. Veins popped out on their foreheads, and bean-sized beads of sweat appeared one after another. In just a moment, the ground was wet. Even Xianxia Qiuhua was holding onto the wall beside her. Her face was pale, and she was on the verge of collapse. A sharp aura arose from Chang Wanju and Xianxia Qiuhua. They were forced to stimulate their sword heart and open their sharp sword aura fields to resist the pressure of the demons in the outside world. However, Xianxia Qiuhua was younger than Jiang Li and had just awakened her sword heart. The sharp sword aura field that she triggered was obviously not as powerful as Chang Wanju's. A faint sharp sword aura field covered Xianxia Qiuhua, but against the omnipresent demon core pressure, it was still barely able to withstand it. This was no longer a matter of willpower. If willpower could resolve everything, why would there be any need to cultivate and seek the Tao? Why would he need the talent of the sword heart? Without a sufficient mental foundation, no matter how strong one's will was, it would be a waste if their soul was crushed. The 6 drops of dragon blood in Jiang Li's body boiled slightly, sweeping away the surrounding pressure. The other uses of this dragon blood were unknown for the time being, but the dragons were proud, and the blood flowing in their veins was filled with the dignity of the dragon race. Using it to remove negative mental states like pressure was too effective. "Junior sister Qiuhua, are you all right?" Jiang Li took 2 steps to Xianxia Qiuhua's side and helped her up. He saw her close her eyes and frown as she worked hard to adjust her breathing. However, under this kind of pressure environment, it was abnormally difficult for her to reorganize herself. Jiang Li thought for a moment before mobilizing the Usura sword heart to enhance the sharp sword aura field. The sharp sword aura field that was released quickly enveloped Xianxia Qiuhua, helping her resist the pressure of the outside world. With Jiang Li's help, her brows gradually relaxed. Clearly, she was having an easier time now. A moment later, a faint, strange fluctuation emitted from her body. Xianxia Qiuhua opened her eyes. A pink peach blossom appeared on her forehead. Under the enhancement of the peach blossom, her entire state gradually stabilized. She could already stand firmly under the chaotic demon core pressure by herself. This should be the result of the special training that Elder Mu had brought her for the past few days. It did not look simple. "Thank you, senior brother Jiang, I'm fine now." The peach blossom mark was shallow in color and shone slightly on the little girl's forehead, causing Jiang Li to be slightly entranced. He even reached out to touch it. It was warm and smooth to the touch. On the mark, it was slightly warmer than the skin beside it. The skin on her face suddenly felt hot. "Senior brother Jiang Tilda." Oh, sorry, I'm glad you're fine. Xianxia voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzzing, and her entire face was completely red. Only then did Jiang Li withdraw his sneaky right hand. Can everyone still go on? Under such circumstances, our mental state is greatly exhausted. We can't stay here for long. Everyone help each other. Let's set off quickly. Everyone, try your best not to speak later. The demons on this level are not ordinary people. Don't attract their attention. In addition, some of the demons here can already speak human language and are good at bewitching people. Everyone, try your best to communicate with hand gestures. Don't believe in any voices. Just lower your heads and quickly pass through. These demon beasts that had formed demon cores were walking on the path of humanoid transformation. Speaking human language was their first step. Some cunning ones would even disguise their voices and speak to deceive others. Therefore, they could not trust any voices here, including their own. For this, the Shu Mountain disciples had specially designed a simple set of hand gestures to communicate, in order to guard against the demons' unscrupulous methods. The remaining few people adjusted their breathing for a period of time and barely helped each other up before following Chang Wanju forward. At this moment there were 7 footsteps, and a few of them sounded weak. Jiang Li sized up the surroundings without leaving a trace and did not notice any abnormalities. Soon they entered the terrifying cell area. Although their idea was to lower their heads and walk without attracting attention, it was obvious that things did not go as smoothly as they imagined. A few disciples did not apply any smell removal powder on them. The human aura on their bodies was immediately captured by the demons with sensitive noses. Meet the smell of meat. What fragrant meat! Someone's here, someone's here. Haha, hurry up, let go of me, let go of me. Human, let me eat you. Human, let me eat you. One hand is enough. I haven't eaten for 100 years. I must eat a big meal today. Hey kid, give me the girl beside you. I'll exchange my treasure for yours. As soon as they entered the cell area, the smell of the 2 disciples who had accidentally not applied the smell-removing powder caused the monsters in the cells to go crazy. The restrictions on the demons on this level were even more severe. Even in the cage, they were also afflicted with many control methods. Bone piercing and steel needles sealing the meridians were all normal conditions. However, this could not fully suppress their strength. As they spoke, their words were extremely cruel. They did not hide their desire for flesh and blood at all. At the same time, powerful auras no longer spread to the entire area. After discovering their traces, they deliberately targeted the group. The auras of more than 100 demons surged towards them. Instantly, the pressure doubled again. The few people who needed support to barely walk directly had 2 streaks of red flowing down their nostrils. Even the peach blossom mark on Xianxia's forehead flickered. She leaned against Jiang Li's body in a daze and felt weak. Due to a slight mistake, their group fell into an extremely passive situation. In the prison beside them, a large mud turtle that was tied to the ground by chains slowly stretched its neck. This mud turtle was much larger than a millstone. On the pitch-black shell, several huge sword scars could be seen. This turtle demon was extremely ugly, but its expression revealed a humanized greed. The ugly head continued to extend. It stretched out longer than its body and approached the fence. Through the fence, a pair of completely black turtle eyes stared at Xianxia. It did not seem to be interested in blood or flesh at all, and only wanted Xianxia. Kid, how about it? I, the 8th king, am a turtle of my word. As long as you give me that girl, I'll use my most precious turtle treasure to exchange for her. This turtle spirit that called itself the 8th king actually opened its mouth and spat out a purple-red tongue. It reached out a gap and slowly stretched it towards Jiang Li and Xianxia. The tip of the purple-red tongue seemed to have something wrapped around it. After it stretched out in front of Jiang Li, the tongue slowly opened up, and one could see gorgeous precious light blooming within. On the tongue, a round pearl the size of a grape slowly revealed itself. As the tongue swayed, a strange force hidden within the treasure light intended to invade Jiang Li's mind. This is my turtle treasure. It's a good treasure that even the immortal Empress wants. As long as you give this girl to me, it'll be yours. The old turtle swayed its tongue and was still trying to control Jiang Li. In its heart, it was actually sneering. Be greedy, be greedy. As long as you are a little greedy for my turtle treasure, you will definitely not be able to escape this old turtle's control. This girl is the real treasure. If I eat her, this old turtle will definitely be able to break through. However, swoosh! Jiang Li formed a hand seal, and a red light instantly shot out from his sleeve and coiled around the purplish-red tongue that was close by. With the configuration of Jiang Li's current mental world, an illusion technique of this level would not be able to affect him even if it tried for another 100 years. However, this old turtle was still not anxious. With its special talent, it could already tell that these 7 disciples were only at the Qi refinement realm. So what if they were not affected by the illusion technique? At most, it would use force. Hee kid, you're just a Qi refinement realm disciple and you want to wait. What is this? Let go of me. Let go of me. The red light revealed its true form, which was a withered red vine. After the red vine wrapped around its tongue, the old turtle 8th king wanted to pull back, but it discovered that the vine in Jiang Li's hand did not move at all. A copious force made its strength useless. Then a sharp pain came from its tongue. A large number of spikes suddenly grew out of the vine and stabbed into its tongue. It began to extract a large amount of blood. This was the spiritual plant, blood-withered vine, that Jiang Li had spent a large amount of money to purchase. When used together with the 9 Nether Dao scripture, its might was extremely terrifying. Once it wrapped around it, the efficiency of drawing blood was even greater than an industrial-grade water pump. In less than 2 breaths, 8th king could not take it anymore. Wait, spare me, I'll die at this rate. The blood color on the tongue receded at a speed visible to the naked eye. The turtle that was at least 2,000 kilograms gradually shriveled until it could no longer draw a drop of blood. Jiang Li forcefully tore off the turtle treasure on the tongue before letting go of the vine. As for the old turtle, its vitality was indeed sufficiently tenacious. Even so, it did not die. It shrunk its head and claws and did not move again. It would probably not recover for a long time. Jiang Li put away the turtle treasure. However, after dealing with a turtle spirit, the group still could not advance under this situation. After some thought, he suddenly spoke loudly. A group of prisoners dare to act rashly in front of us. Looks like the treatment Shu Mountain gave you is too good. You ungrateful beasts. You're even worse than pigs waiting to be slaughtered. Be obedient and admit your mistakes. Otherwise, I'll kill all of you and eat your meat. Jiang Li held the blood-withered vine and actually started to spout nonsense. The numerous demons in the 2nd level were first stunned, and then they were infuriated by Jiang Li's words. They paid no further attention to the others, and in their anger, they poured all their pressure onto him. Jiang Li endured almost all of the pressure, and the others immediately felt their bodies relax, recovering from their dispirited state. Senior brother Jiang. Shenshin Kyuhua wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Jiang Li. He made a quickly leave gesture, letting them leave first. He would advance after they were gone. The others hesitated before walking forward under Jiang Li's firm hand gesture. Chapter 194, Earth Vein Puzzle. Chang Wanju originally wanted to stay behind and endure the pressure with Jiang Li, but Jiang Li completely disagreed. He pushed him 100 meters forward and almost twisted his waist. In this way, they understood Jiang Li's determination, and they finally did not disregard Jiang Li's painstaking efforts. They only wanted to quickly finish burning the incense and return to replace Jiang Li. This group of demons was angered by Jiang Li's words, and they paid no attention to them at all. Their blood-red eyes stared fixedly at Jiang Li, and they wanted to crush Jiang Li's legs with their imposing auras. HMPH kid, you have guts. You sacrificed yourself to help others. However, how are you going to get through today? How about this? Don't say that we demons are unreasonable. I'll give you a chance. Come, kid, kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times. I'll let you pass. A large water buffalo spoke in a muffled voice, but the fangs in its mouth told Jiang Li that this fellow had already become a carnivore for many years. Haha, old bull, you're really benevolent. Give me 10 kowtows or I'll kill you. Ha 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 ha, I want 100 here. If you don't answer, it won't count. Kid, I'm easier to deal with than them. If you don't want a kowtow, cut 20 kilograms of meat for me and I'll let you go. The group of demons were incomparable to Jiang Li as they released their auras madly at him. When they saw Jiang Li standing there without moving, they thought that he was holding on desperately and was about to be crushed. All sorts of vicious words surrounded Jiang Li, and they were extremely threatening. This situation continued for about a minute, until Xianxia and the others disappeared at the end of the passageway. Seeing the Shu Mountain group disappear, Jiang Li suddenly moved. Kid, have you finally thought it through? Ha ha ha, quickly kneel down. The Shu Mountain disciples are nothing much. Quickly let Grandpa Bull enjoy the praise of the Shu Mountain disciples. Jiang Li walked to the side of the bull demon who had started the clamor. The other party thought that he was a Shu Mountain disciple and still believed that victory was in their grasp. Even if they were imprisoned, a Qi refinement realm disciple could not stir up any trouble. Then Jiang Li raised his hand. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 blood-withered vines instantly stabbed into the ox demon's body. The sharp spikes easily pierced through the thick bull's skin, drawing blood like a pumping heart. 3 kowtows, right? It's reasonable, right? You're brave, aren't you? And you want 10, right? 10 blood vines were flung out. Right, you want 100, right? Don't stand on ceremony with me. You still want 20 kilograms of meat, right? Don't worry, I remember it clearly. None of you can escape. For a time, the demons on the second level of the demon-subduing pagoda were silent. Not only could this Qi refinement realm disciple move freely under their combined pressure, but the power of the blood-colored vine was also very astonishing. The spikes on the vines could easily pierce through their skin and extract their blood without any fear. They could even release poison, bringing them immense pain. Wait, that's not what I meant. Spare me, spare me. Especially the hedgehog demon, who was not big to begin with. After being stabbed 100 times, even the spikes on its back turned white. Jiang Li looked at the few small blood gourds that had appeared in his storage bag and was very satisfied. This blood gourd was also one of his chosen spiritual plants. Although this gourd was small and exquisite, it could contain a large amount of liquid. The yin burial coffin had a huge need for blood. Even if the blood of humans was already enough to advance, the need for demon beast blood after advancing would only be greater. He himself also needed new beast blood diagram materials. How could Jiang Li easily let go of such a precious place? In the beginning, this group of demon beasts could not stop cursing and threatening. Later on, they started to beg for mercy and admit their mistakes. However, Jiang Li did not intend to reason with them. He could not keep the people from Shu Mountain away for long. He had to hurry. Along the way, he was not stingy with his spiritual qi. With a wave of his hand, he threw out a large number of blood-withered vines and pierced all the demons that passed through. The demon beasts that were bound could not resist at all. They could only watch as their blood was sucked away in large amounts. About half an hour later, the demon-subduing pagoda was completely silent. In the passage between those cells, vines stretched out one after another. On those vines, there were blood gourds that were growing very well. Jiang Li transformed into a diligent gardener as he quickly retrieved the vines and gourds. To these demons who had already cultivated the demon core, they would not die from having their blood sucked dry. They would only be weakened for a long time. The Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak had specially locked them up and did not kill them, so they naturally had their own plans. Jiang Li had received the favor of others, so it was one thing to take advantage of them, but he could not do things that hurt their interests. However, although they did not intend to kill them, Jiang Li's style of doing things was completely different from the Shu Mountain sword cultivators. This made these demons feel endless fear. Jiang Li's performance was completely unlike that of a weak Qi refinement realm disciple. They all agreed that Jiang Li was definitely a Shu Mountain elder who was pretending to be weak. He had deliberately come to find a reason and draw their blood. What a sinister human! However, they could only stay silent. Just now there was a pig demon who showed no fear. It did not forget to hoot even after its blood was sucked dry. Then, its pig penis was cut off. Its desperate screams made them lose all courage to resist. After Jiang Li finished tidying up the scene, he took out his token and quickly found the Shu Mountain group and the demon subduing pagoda monument's second level according to the instructions. The last person from Shu Mountain just happened to stand up from the mat. They were just about to return to take over Jiang Li's pressure when they realized that Jiang Li had already escaped and was rushing over. Junior brother Jiang Li, it's great that you're fine. This time, if it wasn't for Jiang Li's help, we would have probably stopped halfway. When they saw Jiang Li arrive, they were naturally overjoyed and thanked him repeatedly. Ever since he met the Shu Mountain disciples, he had been thanked countless times. Everyone, there's no need to stand on ceremony. I'm a body cultivator, so my resistance is stronger. This is what I should do. I'm fine here, it's nothing. Don't stand on ceremony with me. After some pleasantries, the other Shu Mountain disciples were filled with admiration for Jiang Li. When they first learned that Jiang Li was the first place in the competition, they were still a little unconvinced. However, based on the glow of worship in their eyes, they had already been completely subdued by Jiang Li's strength and benevolence. Jiang Li, you guys are males. Your gazes are making me very afraid. Right arrow, right arrow. At this moment, Chang Wanju had already helped him reattach the incense stick and even carefully cleaned the cushion on the mat. Jiang Li stepped forward and sized up the pagoda monument on the second level. The shape was almost identical to the pagoda monument on the first level. However, it was inversely symmetrical and looked a little strange. Without much hesitation, he sat cross-legged as well. A moment later, a strand of energy was extracted from the pagoda monument, and after it was transferred to the meditation mat, it slowly surged into his body. Absorbing the earth vein spirit essence of the 5 elements peak. Added status, earth vein spirit essence, right foot. Earth vein spirit essence, right foot, slowly supplements the connate deficiencies and postnatal losses, increases the success rate of foundation establishment. Small increase in the strength of the Tao foundation when establishing it. Duration, 30 days, minus plus. The effect of this status was no different from the effect of the pagoda monument on the first level. However, the details on the earth vein spirit essence changed from left foot to right foot. This pagoda monument seemed to be quite special. However, these two different names allowed the statuses to coexist and overlap. It was not to the extent that Jiang Li's previous status would be negated and make him come here for nothing. Moreover, he carefully sensed the 2 earth vein spirit essences in his body. While they were harmonious, they were clearly critical to each other. It felt like 2 separate pieces of a puzzle. He still lacked the other parts. Only by gathering all the pieces could he complete the original puzzle. Chapter 195, Treasure Hunting. Peak Master Way, the 4 people on the first level have returned. The 4 disciples on the second level are rushing to the exit. There are a total of 3 disciples who are continuing to enter the third level. However, they seem to have encountered some trouble. An elder looked at the golden projection of the demon subduing pagoda and said to Peak Master Wei. On the third level of the demon subduing pagoda, 3 red dots seemed to have run in the wrong direction. Then, the red dots suddenly stopped in a dead end. 2 of the red dots even flickered quickly, and the light became darker and darker. If the red dot completely dimmed, it meant that this disciple had already fainted and lost consciousness. At that time, an elder would have to step out to save him. Wei Wangshuan nodded. He did not say much about this, as if he had already expected this. The demons on the third level are indeed slightly stronger than the demons on the second level, but it's not much higher. The difficulty of the third level lies in that place. Wei Wangxuan pointed at the 3 red dots and clearly knew about the situation there. The talent of those few demons is not simple. Every year, because of them, there are quite a few disciples who fall midway. I wonder if they can pass in the end. Among the 3 of them, Jiang Li was the strongest, but he was a body cultivator. Chang Wanju was second, but his sword heart had been awakened for a long time. Although Xianxia was too young, and her foundation was shallow, with the inheritance of the Xianxia clan and Elder Mu, there should be no lack of backup plans. The result would be up to their fate. After absorbing the earth vein spirit essence on the second level, only 3 people intended to go further: Jiang Li, Chang Wanju, and Xianxia. After all, there were already so many problems on this level. If they continued down, they, who had yet to awaken their sword heart, would really not be able to get anything out of it. After opening a passageway behind the pagoda monument, Jiang Li and the other 2 jumped in successively. Compared to the second level, the pressure on the third level clearly increased again. Even Chang Wanju slowly arched his back under the heavy pressure. Coupled with the expenditure from before, they had already exhausted their sword heart. It was already very difficult for them to endure the following test. Charge through with speed. The 3 of them quickly walked forward without saying a word. The 2 of them rode their swords at a low altitude while Jiang Li walked on the air. He only made a slight sound of friction against the air as he tried to keep a low profile and directly pass through the prison area. The demon beasts on this level seemed to be the quiet type. Among these demons, some had clearly discovered them, but they did not shout crazily like the demon beasts on the second floor. They were also filled with malice towards the 3 of them, but other than the stronger pressure from their auras, they did not seem to want to pay attention to them. This way, Chang Wanju spoke, and then he suddenly turned around and flew towards a small passageway with Jiang Li and the others. Jiang Li frowned. Why had the other party suddenly spoken? Didn't they say that the demons here were all dishonest and could not speak in front of them? Moreover, there seemed to be something wrong with this path. Wait, senior brother Chang. After following Chang Wanju into the small path, Jiang Li felt that something was amiss. After observing the first 2 levels, he could confirm that the locations of the cells in the demon subduing pagoda were arranged according to a set of 9 palace 8 trigrams formation. This array technique was very ancient, so Jiang Li did not know much about it. However, the principles behind this were all interlinked. With his array formation standards, he could basically confirm that the small path Chang Wanju had turned into was a dead end. As expected, after a few steps, several medium-sized cages appeared at the end of the road ahead. However, even so, Chang Wanju seemed to not see it as he directly collided with one of the cages. Slam! Jiang Li pressed down on the other party's shoulder and forcefully stopped him. He stopped a few centimeters away from the cage. Only then did Chang Wanju suddenly wake up. In his eyes, what was ahead was clearly a huge road. In the cell in front of them, an old fox demon appeared. In the other cells around them, there were also foxes locked up. Not bad, you actually woke up so quickly. However, this is all you can do. These fox demons looked human. They were lying or sitting, and their expressions were graceful and peaceful. On the other hand, the old fox that Jiang Li and the others were talking about was still walking slowly in the cage like a human old man with his hands behind his back. Although he had a collar around his neck and was tied to the ground, his action looked rather dignified. It seemed that they had affected Chang Wanju just now, causing him to walk right into their trap. This group of fox demons actually had talent in illusions. Since you're here, don't leave. Today is a good day. Why don't you become my son-in-laws? In the next moment, the surrounding environment changed instantly. From a sinister and terrifying cell, it became a brightly lit courtyard. The surrounding fox demons had all transformed into peerless beauties in thin clothes. Lord Immortals, here are 1,000 spirit pills and 50 kilograms of spirit stones. I have a presumptuous request. I hope that you can marry my daughters tonight. The old fox demon, with his hands behind his back, transformed into a benevolent old man. His cell also became an extremely luxurious hall. The old fox demon pointed at the pile of spirit pills and spirit stones on the ground and made a slightly absurd request. As soon as he finished speaking, alluring sounds came from the surrounding rooms. "Young master, the night in the bridal room is short. I have already taken off my dress and am alone in the tent. Come and spend the night with me." "Young master, my daughter is only 16 years old and wants to choose a good person to serve. I only want to serve you. Young master, are you willing to accept my daughter?" Young master, I can't take it anymore. Quick, come and join me." The surrounding cages turned into the rooms of young girls. 3 girls with completely different styles faced them in an extremely alluring manner. Jiang Li was young and had never seen such a posture. He secretly took a few more glances. Unfortunately, with Jiang Li's multiple mental resistances, the illusion in front of him was only a faint layer of light and shadow. It could be broken with a slight push. Needless to say, the goal of these fox demons was clearly to tempt Jiang Li to open the prison door for them. Xianxia, who was standing beside Jiang Li, seemed to have seen an illusion, but her face was also extremely red. Sword heart break. This illusion technique was indeed very real and tempting, but a cultivator with the sword heart could still resist. 3 sword hearts erupted at the same time. This charming scene was instantly torn apart. In the cage, 3 fox demons shook and suffered the backlash of their illusion being broken. Among them, the one who was originally mainly trying to affect Jiang Li even more so had drops of blood flowing out from his eyes. His body suddenly went soft, looking like he suffered quite a few injuries. Using illusions in front of the sword heart talent was actually very risky, especially when they were imprisoned for a long time and were in bad condition. However, while these fox demons suffered a backlash, Chang Wanju and Xianxia were similarly not feeling well. They had originally relied on their sword heart to withstand the pressure. After this explosion, their sword heart completely weakened. The 2 of them lost the protection of the sharp sword aura field and could no longer endure it. Their bodies and minds became extremely weak. "Damn kid, how dare you hurt my child? I'll make you regret it for the rest of your life." When the old fox saw that a small fox's eyes were bleeding, it looked very angry. A strange light flickered in its eyes, and powerful spell fluctuations erupted again. In this illusion, the surrounding prison doors suddenly opened. 2 fierce fox demons rushed out and wanted to tear them into pieces. However, it was a joint illusion technique earlier, and now it was only this old fox that was executing the illusion technique by itself. It was naturally obvious who was stronger and weaker. In Jiang Li's eyes, the illusion technique was dim to the point he was almost unable to see clearly. The location of the 2 fox demons completely overlapped with Chang Wanju and Xianxia. This old fox even tried to use illusions and words to influence him. He wanted to make him regret for the rest of his life after killing the 2 people beside him. Although this illusion spell series could not directly cause damage, it was a terrifying ability that was impossible to guard against. If Jiang Li was really only a pure body cultivator and did not have such mental resistance, he might really have fallen into its trap. At this moment, a golden light suddenly slashed towards Jiang Li. It was Chang Wanju who had suddenly erupted and attacked him. He casually pushed aside the golden sword. Looking at Chang Wanju again, his eyes were blurry and unfocused. The sword technique in his hand was also terrible to the point of being of no standard. Clearly, he was affected by the illusion technique. The methods of these fox demons were really terrifying. Jiang Li hit Chang Wanju on the neck as he fainted. Xianxia, on the other hand, held 2 flying swords and was resisting something in the illusion. He simply hugged Xianxia and stopped her from moving. Jiang Li waved his hand and struck out another dozen blood-withered vines, causing these sinful fox demons to be sucked dry of their blood before being put down. After that, he did not stop and grab the two of them. Wind arose beneath Jiang Li's feet, and he disregarded the demons that were staring covetously at him. Soon, he found the pagoda monument on the 3rd level. In the vicinity, due to the influence of the pagoda monument's power, the aura of those demons could not envelop this place. Here, they could finally have a breather. Without the heavy mental pressure, Xianxia and Chang Wanju slowly woke up a moment later. What happened? After Xianxia's sword heart was exhausted, she still had the support of the peach blossom mark. It was still all right, and she basically still remembered what had happened. Chang Wanju's mind was severely injured. At this moment, his head hurt so much that it felt like it was splitting apart. He stood up and swayed from side to side, looking extremely sorry. You were under an illusion technique. After using sword heart to break it, you were shocked by the aura of the demons and your minds were damaged. But it should be fine. I'll be fine after resting for a while. They returned to their senses for a long time before recalling what had just happened. They were even more fearful after this. It was no wonder that only a few could reach the 3rd level of the pagoda despite having so many talented senior brothers and sisters in Shu Mountain. It turned out that it was so difficult to pass through the demon-subduing pagoda. However, it was fortunate that Jiang Li was present. They arrived without any mishaps. Looking at the 3rd pagoda monument, they could not help but feel a little excited. This was an opportunity that many Shu Mountain disciples could not envy. As they sighed, a whistling sound came from behind. So you're here, I've been looking for you. The person was a Shu Mountain elder. At their level, they could already completely ignore the demons on the first few levels of the demon-subduing pagoda. They could move freely inside. The ones trembling were the demons in the prison. I'm here to bring you out. You've done well. After burning the incense quickly, I'll bring you out to recuperate. It turned out that Chang Wanju had already been discovered by the outside world after he lost consciousness. This elder had come in to help after seeing a dark red dot. However, he did not expect Chang Wanju to wake up after being brought here by Jiang Li. The 3 of them burned incense one after another. After obtaining the earth vein spirit essence, that elder wanted to bring them back. Xianxia and Chang Wanju naturally had no objections, but Jiang Li chose to refuse. To him, the 3rd level was not even an appetizer. Jiang Li's decision shocked Chang Wanju and Xianxia. Then, they recalled that although Jiang Li was also at the Qi refinement realm, he was actually on a completely different level from them. As the most outstanding Shu Mountain disciples of the current generation, they had suffered repeated setbacks in front of Jiang Li. Now, they even sadly realized that they were already used to such setbacks. That elder knew that Jiang Li still had a token, so he was not too surprised. After saying that he would do his best, he left. A moment later, he was the only human left on the 3rd level. Only then did Jiang Li have the time to look at his appearance. Absorb the earth vein spirit essence of the 5 elements peak. Added status, earth vein spirit essence, torso. Earth vein spirit essence torso slowly supplements the connate deficiencies and postnatal losses, harmonizes the 5 elements and increases the success rate of foundation establishment. Small increase in the strength of the Tao foundation when establishing it. Duration, 30 days, minus plus. This time, the earth vein spirit essence had turned into the torso. Furthermore, the status information of the earth vein spirit essence, torso, was clearly stronger than the description of the previous 2 earth vein statuses. There was also an additional effect of harmonizing the 5 elements. Harmonizing the 5 elements. Jiang Li thought for a moment before condensing wood attribute spiritual qi and fire attribute spiritual qi in his palm. After controlling the 2 to slowly rotate and fuse, this ball of spiritual qi did not ignite immediately. Jiang Li threw out that ball of spiritual qi again. Only when it was 5 meters away from him did this ball of spiritual chi suddenly explode, exploding into a ball of surging spiritual chi. This status seemed to be able to help him control the merging of the 5 elements spiritual chi. When the spiritual chi of different attributes interacted, they could also be controlled, and the difficulty would not be high. From the name of the status, he had both feet and a torso. If he continued going down, wouldn't he be able to create a complete person? He was really looking forward to what would happen then. However, it was not time to go to the 4th level yet. Red light slowly emerged from Jiang Li's sleeve. His blood-withered vine was still unable to endure the thirst. Also, there was this thing. He took out a round pearl the size of a grape from his storage bag. This was the turtle treasure of the 8th king. Name: Turtle Treasure. Type: Demon Molting. Formation: Turtle-Demon Symbiosis. Description: Treasure hunting. When Jiang Li was still an outer sect disciple, he had seen the turtle treasure's description in a book in the scripture storage valley. This thing could barely be considered a treasure, but to cultivators, it was really not a big deal. It was because even mortals could use it, and under normal circumstances, only mortals had such needs. The most precious thing about it was the lack of quantity, hence giving it rarity. The probability of this turtle treasure appearing was really too low. It was a rare item. Even in the cultivation world, it did not appear often. As for its effect, it did sound very powerful. To be able to hunt for treasures, including those buried 3 feet underground. What kind of heaven-defying ability was this? However, in fact, this ability was not as useful as one could imagine. Instead, it was extremely pointless. This was because to ordinary turtles, gold, silver, and antiques were also considered treasures. To mortals, this was naturally correct. However, for cultivators, imagine standing on the streets of Nightless City after using the turtle treasure. From the floor tiles to the wooden planks, pots, bowls, ladles, pots, food, wine, and the clothes of all the cultivators, everything emitted a dazzling treasure light. Other than inflicting blindness, the effect was useless. Even if one ran into the wilderness, this situation would not change much. When one discovered that there was a treasure underground, after excavating for a long time, they would only obtain a few taels of silver. That kind of dejectedness was the root reason why the turtle treasure was considered useless. However, the turtle treasure in Jiang Li's hand might be different. Chapter 196, Demon Subduing Pagoda Spirit. When they had arrived earlier, the Shu Mountain people had flying swords in their hands. Jiang Li also had the cloud-treading boots and the dragon-imprisoning lock. Everyone had treasures above the profound rank on them. Even their clothes were not ordinary. However, under such circumstances, the reaction of the 8th king was completely different from the other demons. It ignored the others and only stared fixedly at Xianxia. It could not be just because she was good-looking. Jiang Li could sense something from the wretched turtle's eyes. It had most likely discovered something on Xianxia, and it was relying on this turtle treasure. As for the exact details, he had to give it a try. Jiang Li took out the anti-spirit short sword and forcefully pressed it against his left arm, drawing a hole in his skin. After that, he directly stuffed the turtle shell into it. This was the standard usage method of the turtle treasure. Soon, the wound that had just been cut completely healed. The turtle treasure buried inside suddenly moved twice, and soon it was connected to his flesh and blood. Turtle treasure implanted, added status, treasure vision. After that, the scene before Jiang Li's eyes gradually turned white and bright, and it was quickly covered by a dazzling bright light. At a glance, it was as if 100 trucks were flashing distant lights. The entire world was white and almost impossible to see. This was the demon subduing pagoda. Any tile inside was far more valuable than gold. In terms of the treasure vision, they were all treasures. I knew it. There must be a reason why this turtle treasure was not taken away by the Shu Mountain people. It was already impossible to see normally. However, Jiang Li narrowed his eyes and discovered that there was actually a difference in strength among these rays of light. He pulled out a black cloth and covered his eyes. Using a black cloth to cover his eyes and block at least 95% of the light in front of him, he could barely accept the treasure light world in front of him. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Li threw out the dragon imprisoning lock and formed a star-shaped pattern in the air. Sure enough, in the midst of the whiteness, an even more dazzling star shape appeared in his vision. Although the power of the dragon imprisoning lock was no longer present, just the material itself was no less valuable than the yin burial coffin. Even though he was covered in a black cloth, it still pierced his eyes until tears flowed. It was said that the turtle's vision was not good. With the glaring degree of this treasure light, it was probably impossible to control this treasure without having some blindness. Jiang Li used his spiritual qi and hearing to sense the outside world. He returned to the cell area and used his treasure vision to scan it. In the vast expanse of spiritual light, only a few items were more dazzling. After memorizing the location, Jiang Li hurriedly cut open the flesh and took out the turtle treasure again. As the turtle treasure was taken out, the scene before Jiang Li's eyes finally returned to normal. As for the treasure vision, he did not intend to retain it. He did not lengthen the status. The difference between this turtle treasure and other ordinary turtle treasures was that it could react to different treasures of different value. Although the blinding treasure light vision was still very troublesome, it should be useful at times. However, if the benefits were limited, Jiang Li was still a little unwilling to experience that kind of blinding vision. Rubbing his tortured eyes, Jiang Li took away their blood as usual and obtained a few decent demon beast materials. Thus, there was no need to stay on the third level. After opening the passageway to the fourth level, the aura that came from below made even Jiang Li feel serious. After jumping down to the fourth level, in the cold and quiet environment, there was only one sound of advancing footsteps. However, Jiang Li suddenly stopped and turned around to carefully observe his surroundings. When he first entered the demon-subduing pagoda, it was nothing. However, after receiving the first earth vein spirit essence, Jiang Li felt that something was amiss. With the help of the Bodhisattva Heart Sutra, Jiang Li's hearing had always exceeded that of ordinary people. However, after that, he always felt strange when he heard footsteps. There seemed to be footsteps that coincided with theirs. The sound was extremely soft, and the rhythm was very good. Even with Jiang Li's hearing, he could only faintly sense it. In the beginning, he did not pay too much attention to it. However, after obtaining the second earth vein spirit essence, this sound became much more obvious. Because of this, he glanced sideways frequently and searched for any target that might be a demon. However, with his limited probing methods, he ended up empty-handed. Only earlier did Jiang Li finally confirm that there was definitely something following him, because from before, even though his feet seemed to be on the ground. However, he had actually been walking in the air the entire time. It was just that he was extremely close to the ground and was not easily seen by others. Therefore, he did not make any footsteps. The footsteps that were completely in sync with him belonged to someone else. "May I know which senior is playing a joke on me? Please show yourself." Jiang Li cupped his fists, while his eyes observed his surroundings vigilantly. "Junior does not have any malice. Senior, please don't toy with me." Jiang Li's words were very firm. He did not doubt his own judgment at all. If that person still did not come out, he would leave and return to the surface to inform the Shu Mountain Elder. After waiting for 5 minutes, right when Jiang Li turned around and walked back, a voice finally sounded. "Ha ha ha ha, what a clever junior. You still discovered me. In these 100 years, you're the first disciple to discover me. However, you shouldn't be a Shu Mountain disciple, right? Why have you entered my demon-subduing pagoda?" An old man with white hair and an immortal-like disposition appeared out of thin air on the ground in front of Jiang Li, asking with a benevolent expression. However, this elder's figure was transparent like a shadow. It was either not a living person or this was not his main body. Greetings, Senior. I am a disciple of the Scripture Storage Valley. I was invited by Peak Master Way of the Shu Mountain to enter the demon-subduing pagoda for training. If I have offended you in any way, please forgive me. May I know Senior's name? Jiang Li spoke cautiously. To be able to pass through the Shu Mountain's tight defense and enter the demon-subduing pagoda, it could only be someone from Shu Mountain. Ha ha ha, didn't you say my name already? The elder laughed loudly. After hearing that Jiang Li was not a Shu Mountain disciple, he seemed to be even happier. Already said it, Senior, what do you mean? Jiang Li had a guess but still asked. My name is Demon Subduing. According to you humans, I am the pagoda spirit of this demon-subduing pagoda. Don't look at me like that. That fellow, Xianxia, has to call me Martial Granduncle. However, you are not from Shu Mountain. You can just call me Senior. The old man who called himself the demon-subduing pagoda spirit stroked his beard with an expression, as if Jiang Li was given a great favor. So it's Senior Demon-Subduing. I've been rude. Jiang Li bowed again. So it was the demon-subduing pagoda spirit. Although he had never seen the spirit of this artifact, he felt that, with the level of the demon-subduing pagoda, it should be able to satisfy the requirements of producing a spirit. When the white-haired phantom saw Jiang Li act in this way, it smiled and waved its hand. It's fine, it's fine. Over the years, there have been very few disciples who have reached the 4th level. You, a junior, still know etiquette. Not bad, not bad. Is the Scripture Storage Valley a new sect? A lot has happened since I woke up. Forget it, since you can come here, you're fated to meet me. How about this? Tell me about what happened outside these years. In return, I'll give you a fortuitous encounter. How about it? The demon-subduing pagoda spirit appeared very friendly and generous. From its words, it was not wary of Jiang Li at all. After knowing that Jiang Li was not a Shu Mountain disciple, not only was it not unfamiliar with him, it even expressed that it wanted to give Jiang Li a chance. How could Jiang Li refuse such a good thing? Senior Demon-Subduing is generous. It would be impolite for me to refuse. He, Senior, is there anything good on the 4th level? Jiang Li had no habit of rejecting things that were delivered to his door. He directly asked if there were any benefits that could be fulfilled immediately. The demon-subduing pagoda spirit was obviously stunned as well. Who would have imagined that Jiang Li would not even stand on ceremony? However, you're quite special, kid. You're not so roundabout and straightforward. You suit my taste. Then this can be considered a greeting gift from me to you. I'll tell you secretly that the number 22 demon prisoner in the 3rd region has something good on him. I didn't even tell those juniors from Shu Mountain. However, whether you can obtain it will depend on your own ability. Jiang Li walked into the cell area with the old pagoda spirit, but the demons here were unable to see the spirit at all, and they could only see Jiang Li alone. The demons on the 4th level naturally became even stronger. There were also many demons that could start walking upright. Their fingers became even longer and nimbler, and there were more human characteristics everywhere on their bodies. This kind of quasi-transformation of half-demons and half-demons was not achieved overnight after sleeping, but usually required a long process. They would shed their scales and bare horns, transform their wet bodies, and finally be reborn. The demons in this process were roughly equivalent to the true core to the golden core realm among human cultivators. Of course, according to their racial talent, the difference in combat strength would be like the difference between heaven and earth. Their auras and pressure were completely different from the demons who had just formed their cores. Especially with the combination of several greater demons, the might was as terrifying as a storm. Sword Heart, Dragon Blood, Golden Core Dao Heart. When these 3 factors were combined, the might that tore through layer by layer and swept over caused Jiang Li to be only slightly stunned before he recovered from his shock. However, if this pressure environment continued to increase at this terrifying speed, then if he went down another 2 levels, it would probably be Jiang Li's limit. Number 22, demon prisoner in the 3rd region, was a huge crimson snake. At this moment, it had already grown a human head and hands. It was a little similar to the legendary Naga. The Naga's upper body was completely humanoid. The skin was smooth and the face was beautiful. It was like a snake from the waist down, but its figure was beautiful and curvy. However, this snake demon was clearly far from that level. From her armpit, she had a snake body. Even less than half of her body was not covered in smooth human skin. Instead, it was still covered in red snake skin scales. The hair on her head was sparse, and her mouth was still in the terrible shape of a snake's mouth. Forgive Jiang Li for speaking bluntly, but this fellow did not have any beauty that conformed to the concept of humans. Who asked you to be so ugly? Don't blame me. Jiang Li cast spell techniques as the blood-withered vine slowly entered the snake demon's cell. The defense of the demons on this level had greatly increased. Separated by the fence, Jiang Li could not use his full strength. Gradually, even if they were nailed to the ground and could not resist, it was no longer easy to break through their skin and draw blood. Jiang Li spent quite a bit of effort but barely opened a hole in her stomach. Then, he took out something that was like a stone for a long time. Everyone knew that the snake demon's gallbladder was a good thing. Shu Mountain naturally would not leave it for him. However, to be able to obtain this thing was a pleasant surprise. It was a dragon bone that had basically turned into a fossil. Elder, he had a collection of such items, but they were better than this. The tiny bit of dragon chi remaining on it was indeed very important to snakes and fish that wanted to transform into dragons. However, it was still unknown how useful it could be. After putting away the dragon bone, it meant that the demon-subduing pagoda spirit was not lying to him. In front of the white-clothed elder, Jiang Li hesitated for a moment before continuing to extract the blood of these demons. The other party did not stop him. Instead, it looked happy to see this and acted very generously. Since even the demon-subduing pagoda spirit approved of it, Jiang Li was even more at ease and bold in drawing blood. Only after he drained the demon beast blood on this level did Jiang Li continue down. Absorbing the earth vein spirit essence of the 5 elements peak. Added status, earth vein spirit essence left hand. Absorbing the earth vein spirit essence of the 5 elements peak. Added status, earth vein spirit essence right hand. On the pagoda monuments of the 4th and 5th levels, Jiang Li obtained 2 statuses, namely the left and right hands. The effect was similar to that of the 2 feet. However, the 5 earth vein spirit essences had already tightly adhered together in Jiang Li's body. Although there were no signs of fusion, there should still be some key elements left. However, as the earth vein spiritual aura increased, the image of the pagoda spirit old man started to become clearer and clearer in Jiang Li's eyes for some reason. It was obvious that the other party had a very close relationship with this kind of energy. Jiang Li could hear his voice initially because he had absorbed the earth vein spirit essence. When the pagoda spirit old man saw that Jiang Li was such a genius and was able to arrive at the 5th level by himself, he was extremely surprised, and then he became even more enthusiastic. He didn't even need Jiang Li to speak before taking the initiative to guide him and search for the things that were left behind on the demon beasts. With his help, Jiang Li obtained some good things from the demons. However, when Jiang Li wanted to continue, the token in his hand lost its effect. Chapter 197, Earth Spirit Blessing. No matter how Jiang Li activated the token in his hand, or how bright the spiritual light was, the passageway leading to the 5th level did not react at all. What's wrong, Jiang Li? You seem to have encountered some trouble. When the spirit of the demon-subduing pagoda saw that Jiang Li was still there, he went up and asked very enthusiastically. He seemed to really treat Jiang Li as a good friend from long ago. Senior demon-subduing, my token can't open the passageway. Jiang Li was slightly vexed, but he could roughly guess that it was probably not a fault in the token. Reaching the 5th level of the demon-subduing pagoda as a chi refinement cultivator was already the highest record in the history of Shu Mountain. Peak Master Wei and the others did not think that Jiang Li had the ability to continue downwards. In addition, this demon-subduing pagoda was still a secret place of the Shu Mountain. The deeper one went, the more secrets there were. Some things below were not convenient for outsiders to see. It was too normal. Therefore, the authority to open the door of this token should only allow him to reach the 5th level. Let me see. Jiang Li hesitated for a moment before handing the token over. The white-haired old man received the token and inspected it for a moment before quickly verifying Jiang Li's guess. The authority further down the token was insufficient. In this way, Jiang Li could only sigh as he looked at the 5 elements formation disk that led to the 6th level. He had tested it before. This demon-subduing pagoda was very, very solid. No matter how powerful the force was when it struck it, it would vanish without a trace. At the very least, even with his full strength, he was unable to destroy a brick of the other party. Without the authority to continue with the token, wouldn't that mean that he would stop here before he finished his mission? There were a total of 9 levels in the demon-subduing pagoda, and each level had a pagoda monument. Didn't that mean that he was still missing an entire half of the earth vein puzzle? Just as he was feeling conflicted, the old pagoda spirit beside him saw through his thoughts. Young friend Jiang Li, do you still want to descend? I still want to go down and challenge them, but I'm afraid I don't have the chance anymore. Jiang Li nodded in agreement and revealed a very regretful expression. Little friend, don't be depressed. Didn't I say that I would give you a fortuitous encounter? With me around, it's not the time to give up yet. However, the next few levels are too dangerous. If you're not careful, you might lose your life. If you go down, you have to listen to my arrangements. The words of the demon-subduing pagoda spirit gave him hope again. Due to the previous 2 times, Jiang Li had found some good demon-beast materials under the guidance of the other party, and he was very grateful towards this. In the eyes of the demon-subduing pagoda spirit, both sides had already established a certain level of trust. Therefore, he made this request at the right time. How could Jiang Li have any reason to refuse? He hurriedly agreed and thanked him excitedly. Seeing this, the demon-subduing pagoda spirit nodded in satisfaction. He took a few steps back, and then he raised his hand and directly pressed it on the pagoda monument that was shaped like his right hand. The pagoda monument emitted 5 colored spiritual lights. The surrounding array formation was also affected and began to flicker. In next to no time, a familiar sound of stone rubbing sounded, and the 5 elements formation disk that blocked Jiang Li's descent finally slowly opened. Little friend, jump. Thank you for your help, senior. I can't thank you enough. After Jiang Li cupped his hands in thanks, he directly leaped down. In the outside world, 5 elders and 10 disciples who had already left the pagoda were staring at the floating golden figure. At this moment, there was only a red dot left in the shadow of the pagoda, and it naturally represented Jiang Li. Look, he really passed the 4th level. How is this possible? What an impressive junior. Is the resistance of a body refinement cultivator really so outstanding? Peak Master Way. The bodies of the Shu Mountain 5 elements peak disciples are generally too weak. Should we increase our body cultivation in the future? An elder of the Earth element peak proposed a suggestion that he thought was very constructive. However, Elder Wei shook his head without even thinking. He knew very well that there was a reason why body cultivators were not welcomed by cultivators for so many years. For most cultivators, the benefits of body refinement were far less than qi refinement. Even if they spent time and effort to improve their physique, in the end, they still could not defeat the enemy they should not have been able to defeat. Some of the freaks were indeed very strong in body refinement, but they could not expect everyone to be the same. At the very least, 99% of the Shu Mountain disciples were not worthy. Sword cultivation was their true forte. Quickly look, Jiang Li has actually gone to the 5th level. Unbelievable, unbelievable. This Jiang Li is too bold. Doesn't he know what kind of demons are locked in the 5th level? However, on the 5th level, his speed finally slowed down. Now, Let's see if he can pass through the group of demons on the 5th level and reach the location of the pagoda monument. A few elders looked at the red dot that was walking and stopping with difficulty on the 5th level. Their hearts were sour with envy and emotions. They were all guessing if Jiang Li could create a miracle. However, what was strange was that even though Jiang Li had clearly descended to the 6th level at this moment, there was utterly no sign of him on the shadow of the pagoda. The red dot reflected on the demon-subduing pagoda's golden projection was much slower than Jiang Li's actual speed, and it seemed to be playing in slow motion. This was clearly done by someone, but the people outside the pagoda and Jiang Li inside the pagoda were completely unaware. Jiang Li was currently descending towards the 6th level in the narrow passageway. The air that assaulted him made his hair stand on end. As soon as he landed, he felt his body tighten. The muscles in his body instinctively trembled and tightened, stiffening all the joints in his body. This was the pressure of the aura of an invincible predator. Even his master, Elder He, could probably only unleash his aura like this. In terms of the aura above, it felt like moving through a swamp. Although it was difficult due to the pressure, he could still barely struggle. Here, he seemed to be sealed in solidified concrete. Even Jiang Li felt an immense pressure in this environment. While his body was hard, even breathing became abnormally difficult. It was as if his body did not dare to breathe the air that carried the aura of a terrifying creature. At this moment, Jiang Li's blood flow suddenly sped up, and the blood vessels on his forehead slowly swelled up while the skin on his entire body became crimson red. The dragon blood in his body was boiling crazily. The dignity that had been flowing in its descendants' veins since ancient times gradually awakened. A slight dragon roar that only Jiang Li could barely hear sounded, and a mouthful of scorching hot steam suddenly spewed out of his mouth. Only then did his stiff joints relax, and his chest and abdomen began to violently heave before he recovered his normal breathing. Although it was only a mere 6 drops of dragon blood, coupled with his sword heart and golden core Dao heart, it barely helped Jiang Li resist the terrifying aura that was present everywhere. The demons on the 6th level did not exceed his expectations. Their strength rose to another level. There were probably terrifying demon kings who had completely transformed. He did not expect that such existences could be captured by the Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak. Capturing them alive was different from killing. The difficulty level was far higher than the latter. From this, it could be seen how powerful the Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak was. "Little friend Jiang, follow me." At this moment, the white-haired old man appeared from the wall again. After gesturing at Jiang Li to keep quiet, he actually waved his hand to open a secret passage and brought Jiang Li in. It was too dangerous to directly pass through the cell area. The aura that spread to the entire 6th level was already so terrifying. If it concentrated on his body, even if he had the protection of the mental statuses and the help of the parallel minds, he would probably suffer a huge loss. Fortunately, he was lucky to have the help of the pagoda spirit. Only then could he silently pass through the secret passage and pass through the cell area. Jiang Li heaved a sigh of relief. In any case, demon kings were not existences he could target. Not to mention that he could not break through the defense. It was hard to say if he could stand firmly in front of those guys. Like a ghost, he silently floated past the 6th level. Here he saw a huge bare rock head. This head was the pagoda monument of the 6th level of the demon-subduing pagoda. If the first 6 levels of the pagoda monument were combined together, it would be a complete stone statue. If this was not the bad taste of the Shu Mountain seniors, the raw materials of the demon-subduing pagoda monuments might be a little special. If he continued, what would the pagoda monument be? "Little friend Jiang Li, sit down quickly. Calm your mind and let me help you with your cultivation." The demon-subduing pagoda spirit's performance was slightly urgent. Jiang Li did not refuse and directly sat down. The other party did not need to burn incense. He slapped the pagoda monument again, and a familiar energy surged along the chain. absorbing the earth vein spirit essence of the 5 elements peak. Added status, earth vein spirit essence, head. With ease, Jiang Li obtained another earth vein spirit essence. However, right after this energy entered his body, the 6 earth vein spirit essences suddenly changed violently together. There is a resonance of the earth vein spirit essences. Spirit essence fusion begins. Before Jiang Li could even take a look at the attributes of the new status, the 6 earth vein spirit essence in his body started to attract each other without any warning, as if they were firewood tossed into a fire, and they directly started to fuse together. A strange ripple spread out. Jiang Li's body seemed to have become as stable and heavy as a mountain. On the other hand, the demon-subduing pagoda spirit beside him had a happy expression for some reason. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. However, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes went by. As time passed, the demon-subduing pagoda spirit revealed a confused expression. Because to his and Jiang Li's surprise, the fusion process had strangely failed. There is an abnormality in the fusion of the earth vein spirit essences. Failed fusion, failed fusion, failed fusion, failed fusion. As if it was a magnet's suction and instinct, although the fusion failed, the 6 energies did not give up. They began the fusion process again. However, every time they fused, there would be abnormalities and failures. Thus, in front of Jiang Li, these 2 messages began to continuously appear on the interface. The 6 energies were continuously fusing and failing. Jiang Li was slightly stunned. What was going on? While Jiang Li was surprised, the old spirit was even more stunned. This did not make sense, or at the very least, it should not be. The 6 spirit essences were connected together, and they should have attracted each other and merged into one. Why did it suddenly stop? The demon-subduing pagoda spirit was anxious to the point of running around in circles, whereas Jiang Li closed his eyes and started to inspect the situation in his body. He made the parallel mind pay close attention to the situation outside, preventing a certain person from attacking while he was meditating. He also sank his consciousness into his body and found the depths of the Qi Sea where the 6 earth vein spirit essences were hidden. Just as the interface had said, the 6 wisps of energy in his body were almost identical in his eyes. They were trying to fuse together. However, every time it reached a crucial point, for some reason, there was an earth vein spirit essence that could not be fused into it. This earth vein spirit essence should be the one he had just obtained on the 6th level. Jiang Li felt that he had grasped the key to the problem and carefully observed the fusion process a few more times. Every time they fused, the process of fusing the first 5 spirit essences was very smooth. However, the spirit essence that had just entered the body was pushed aside and could not join them. Then the fusion would fail because it lacked the key essence that represented the head. Moreover, every time it failed, the other 5 spirit essences did not change at all. Only this new spirit essence energy was shrinking at a visible speed. Jiang Li ignored this information and flipped to the status bar to check. He discovered that the duration of the status called Earth Vein Spirit Essence Head had already dropped from 30 days to 17 days. Furthermore, every time the fusion failed, the duration would decrease by another day. Now he understood. The reason for this failure was that the fusion was too sudden. As a result, Jiang Li did not have the time to extend the new status, Earth Vein Spirit Essence Head, to infinite duration. Therefore, although this energy looked similar to the other 5 spirit essences, they were vastly different. The rule of Jiang Li's augmentation was that a higher-level buff from the same source would overwrite the lower-level buff status. It was just like how 100 points of spiritual qi per second would overwrite the 50 points of spiritual qi per second. Or for example, an overdosed pill status would overwrite an ordinary pill status. The fusion of these 6 earth vein spirit essences would definitely produce an even stronger status and completely overwrite them. However, 5 of these 6 statuses were infinite in duration, and the remaining one was only 30 days. Then, how long would the new status that was formed last? With this issue, the fusion of the spirit essence could only fail repeatedly. However, the solution was simple. Jiang Li pressed the plus button for 5 seconds after the earth vein spirit essence head status. Sure enough, the fusion process no longer had any obstruction, and it quickly fused together. In his Qi, the dense earth vein energy was like a dough that continuously twisted and transformed. Gradually, a small rock person formed from the earth vein spirit essence became clearer and clearer. The rock person quietly lay there, emitting warm energy currents to nourish his body. Fusion of the 5 elements peaks earth vein spirit essences. Added status, earth spirit blessing 6-9. Talent, earth spirit body incomplete has been obtained. Earth spirit blessing 6-9. Nourishment of the earth spirit's essence will slowly increase aptitude. Strengthened harmonization of the 5 elements and greatly increases the success rate of foundation establishment. Great increase in the strength of the Tao foundation when establishing it. Duration, infinity, minus. Chapter 198, Demonic Cultivator. After the 6 earth vein spirit essences combined, they formed an even stronger buff, earth spirit blessing. Moreover, as soon as this status appeared, the duration behind it was the symbol infinity that represented infinity. That was because the duration of the 6 earth vein spirit essences was infinite. Without Jiang Li's approval, they could not escape. Apart from that, Jiang Li had also obtained an incomplete physique-type talent, the earth spirit body incomplete. Although Jiang Li had never personally seen a cultivator with physique-related talent, they were all existences that were well known. There were rumors that cultivators with special physiques were true geniuses. For example, the connate Tao body that often appeared in the legends cultivated at an astonishing speed. Raising one's cultivation realm was as simple as eating and drinking. They could learn spell techniques and secret techniques with a single glance. Weapons and movement techniques could also be mastered with one use. These were geniuses who had never thought of becoming friends with ordinary people. Countless low-level cultivators dreamed that one day, when they woke up, they would suddenly gain such unparalleled talent. Afterwards, they would overcome and slaughter everything in their path to supremacy. Unfortunately, the cultivation world of the Great Mountain region was still a little too small. Up until now, there had not been many geniuses of this level, and there was not a single disciple of such talent in this generation. However, he did not expect that before he met such a genius, he would obtain a physique-type talent himself. Although it was obtained postnatally and was still incomplete, it was still the symbol of a genius. After having this physique, his strength did not increase, his speed did not increase, and his spiritual qi did not become stronger. The only change was that there was something extra in his perception. Now, he could vaguely sense that there was a heavy force slowly flowing everywhere under the surrounding walls and ground. This was the power of the earth vein. A moment later, Jiang Li opened his eyes and revealed a satisfied expression. After obtaining this physique, the pagoda spirit in front of him had already been fully condensed in his eyes. He was no different from a real person. The joy on his face that he could not suppress seemed to be even happier than Jiang Li himself. "Kid, do you feel it?" Even the Shu Mountain disciples have never obtained this power. Jiang Li did not know if the other party was telling the truth. It was indeed difficult for Shu Mountain disciples to obtain these 6 portions of spirit essence, but it should not be difficult for those Shu Mountain elders to gather all 9 portions. Was it because they could not obtain such a physique after foundation establishment, or was it because the earth spirit was unwilling to give them the blessing? Jiang Li smiled as well, and he cupped his hands in thanks. "Thank you for your help, Senior Demon Subduing. This junior is extremely grateful. However, I feel that this power seems to be incomplete." Jiang Li mimicked the white-clothed elder and reached out to press on the head-like pagoda monument. Immediately, he could clearly feel the endless power inside. It was as if the majestic Shu Mountain 5 Elements peak was standing in front of him. However, while he could clearly sense it, he could not see it, much less touch it. This should be because the earth spirit body was still incomplete and could not unleash its true power. However, I'm afraid I can only stop here. The level below is definitely even more dangerous. I'm only at the Qi refinement realm. I'm really helpless against it. As Jiang Li spoke, he acted as if he was about to give up, but the demon-subduing pagoda spirit opposite him was displeased. Little friend Jiang Li, the path to immortality is a struggle. How can you be afraid and not advance at such a young age? Listen to me. Don't give up too early. I'm still here. Although the pagoda level below is dangerous, it's not impossible. Watch my methods. The white-haired elder slapped the pagoda monument again. A stream of energy that was barely visible to the naked eye sprayed out from within. This energy was light like a thin veil, and it was heavy like magma. Under the control of the demon-subduing pagoda spirit, it enveloped Jiang Li's body evenly. This thin layer of earth vein power covered Jiang Li's body and did not bring him any new status effects. In the outside world, this layer of earth vein power was almost useless. However, when placed in the demon-subduing pagoda, which was filled with the earth vein power of the 5 elements peak, it formed a similar frequency with the energy in the pagoda. This thin layer of energy veil completely concealed his aura. Of course, this was only concealing his aura and did not have the effect of invisibility. Try it over there. The old pagoda spirit looked a little tired after using this method, but he still revealed a smile. He stroked his beard and let Jiang Li walk out of the safety area of the pagoda monument. Jiang Li did as he was told and left the area covered by the energy of the pagoda monument. The oppressive and baneful aura in the environment affected his body once more. However, when the heavy pressure touched the earth vein power in his body, it was inexplicably absorbed by nearly half. Then, in a strange manner, it moved to the ground around him and finally disappeared. Jiang Li's eyes lit up. This was a good ability, but it seemed to only be used in the demon-subduing pagoda. It had to be compatible with the power of the earth vein in order to be effective. Jiang Li silently memorized the rough method to use the earth vein power. His face revealed a joyous expression as he thanked the white-haired pagoda spirit again. The 5 elements stone slate on the 7th level was slowly opened. He took a deep breath and jumped down. However, when he focused his mind and prepared to receive the impact of the baneful aura, he discovered something shocking. The baneful aura pressure that surged up from the 7th level was not any higher than the 6th, but instead decreased greatly. With a light step, Jiang Li landed silently. Although the air environment was still ordinary, there was no longer the strange smell of the various demons. What's going on? Jiang Li was slightly surprised and looked at the demon-subduing pagoda spirit. The other party's expression was serious, telling him not to lower his guard. Calmness is not equivalent to safety. Little friend, you have to be careful. Ignore everything later. Don't believe anything. Just be careful and pass. I understand. Jiang Li did not refute. There was no convenient secret passage on this level. After taking a deep breath, he lightly flew into the cell area. What he saw made him understand the situation. This was because there were not demon beasts locked up on this level, but hundreds of human cultivators. Cultivators were different from demon beasts. Demon beasts lived in chaotic and dangerous wilderness their entire lives. That place was disorderly and filled with enemies. As long as one was not careful, they might be attacked and die on the spot. Therefore, the harsh environment created the instinct to be vigilant. Most demon beasts rarely slept. They constantly emitted their aura and smell, showing all the surrounding creatures that they had occupied the territory. Once a creature that could pose a threat entered their territory, they would not hesitate to attack and use their claws and fangs to determine the winner. However, human cultivators who had formed the cultivation system would not be like this. They were more rational and knew how to play dirty. It was often the best effect. Naturally, they would not be like the demons, crazily releasing their aura at all times to display their status. Other than exposing themselves, it would not have any positive effects. Therefore, it was precisely because of this that the pressure in the 7th level was even lower. Jiang Li glanced at the sign on the prison door. Wu Tong, titled the Rolling River Python, was a core formation realm true core stage cultivator and the leader of the Red Water 7 monsters. Jiang Li knew of such cultivators. They usually resided in a certain area and killed cultivators that came and went in order to obtain benefits. In the past, Jiang Li had personally encountered 3 similar fellows. Then there was the Skin Flayer Wang Zheng, a core formation realm true core stage cultivator. Dream Slaughter Ghost Maiden, core formation realm golden core stage cultivator. On these iron tablets, only the names, cultivation levels, and rough origins of the people imprisoned were written. As for their crimes, there were too many to count. It turned out that in this demon-subduing pagoda, other than imprisoning the demons, there were also so many high-level demonic cultivators locked up. None of these demonic cultivators were weak. Although they were locked up, this did not mean that they were not dangerous. On the contrary, cultivators had more methods and were more cunning. Even if they were heavily bound, it was very easy for him to fall for their trap. It was precisely because they were more dangerous than the demons that they were imprisoned in the 7th level. Presumably, Shu Mountain would not allow their disciples to come here easily. Cultivators at the Qi refinement realm and even the Foundation establishment realm were not mentally strong enough. If they came to this sinful place and were swayed by this group of demonic cultivators, it would be troublesome. He had to leave quickly. If the Shu Mountain elder discovered that he had arrived on the 7th level, someone would definitely come down to investigate and bring him out. Before that, he had to gather as much earth vein spirit essence as possible. "Hey kid, let me out and I'll take you in as my disciple. I'll teach you a peerless cultivation method that's enough to dominate the cultivation world." At this moment, a voice sounded out from the prison beside him. Jiang Li acted as if he did not hear it. As a disciple of the Scripture Storage Valley, he did not lack cultivation methods the most. Moreover, dominating the cultivation world did not rely only on cultivation methods. No matter how strong a cultivation method was, it was useless if he could not cultivate it. "Kid, don't leave yet. I still have 1,000 high-grade spirit stones hidden outside. How about it? As long as you pull out the nail on my head, I'll tell you where the spirit stones are." Jiang Li still ignored him, but that person did not give up. "Hey kid, aren't you tempted by an Earthrank artifact?" Earthrank artifact. Jiang Li's footsteps finally stopped, and he glanced at the iron token on the door. Black Blood Green Bat was a core formation realm golden core stage cultivator and an elder of the corrupted blood cult. The corrupted blood cult. A strange expression flashed across Jiang Li's eyes. He knew this sect. When he was in the outer sect cultivation hall, this demonic cultivator sect was a classic negative example used in lessons. The time when it was established was similar to the Scripture Storage Valley. More than 200 years ago, it acted very arrogantly. Due to their abnormally rapid advancement in demonic arts, more and more cultivators joined them. At that time, they occupied a piece of land in the west, and their forces were directly comparable to top sects. However, in order to cultivate the demonic technique, they needed to suck human blood every day to assist in their cultivation. As their scale grew larger and larger, the scene of corpses everywhere was insufficient to describe it. Later on, they finally attracted the displeasure of the other cultivators. In the end, they were annihilated under the worship of the Scripture Storage Valley and became a stepping stone for the Scripture Storage Valley to become the Great Mountain region's top 4 sects. Even now, in the Scripture Storage Valley, there was a large number of demonic cultivation methods that were seized from them. He did not expect that there would be some who escaped and were captured by Shu Mountain until now. Jiang Li could not help but look at the person inside. Black Blood Green Bat also raised his head to look at Jiang Li. His hair, which had not been tidied for 200 years, fell messily, covering his face, making it difficult to see clearly. Jiang Li could only see a long pitch-black nail, nailed deeply into his forehead. The pair of eyes hidden under the messy hair looked straight at Jiang Li. At the beginning it was fine, but after he saw the word storage on Jiang Li's chest, his expression shook, and then his dry mouth slowly opened, revealing a mouthful of pitch-black teeth that were sharp like needles. Someone from the scripture storage valley, hee how lucky. Wuxia. Black Blood Greenbat did not care about the deal that was proposed earlier. After he noticed that this was a disciple of the scripture storage valley, killing intent that was like a mountain of corpses, and a sea of blood surged towards Jiang Li. The smell of blood contained the wails of countless innocent people. When it arrived before Jiang Li, the earth vein power activated, and it directly ground away a portion of the killing intent before vanishing. After that, there were 3 more defenses. The sword heart, dragon blood, and golden core Dao heart broke through the force, and finally, only a light breeze blew on the 9 nether wood at the core of his mind. However, even the lingering killing intent carried by the light wind made Jiang Li's body shake uncontrollably. Fortunately, he was only at the golden core realm, and the long nail on his forehead greatly limited his strength, so it did not cause any obvious harm to Jiang Li. However, this also riled up the other prisoners. The other prisoners in the cell area seemed to have been stimulated as well. They released their auras and killing intent, causing the temperature in this area to plummet. At this moment, the effect of the earth vein power was revealed. The thin veil covered his aura, making it difficult for others to sense him. This meant that most of the hundreds of demonic cultivators did not know his exact location. Only a few cultivators who could directly see him before he walked past the cell could attack him accurately. As such, the pressure on him decreased greatly. Withstanding wave after wave of dense killing intent, Jiang Li's footsteps slowly floated forward, and the scene before his eyes had already started to show slight distortions. A large amount of negative emotions surged into his consciousness, forming dark clouds in the sky above his mental world. They began to flash with blood-red lightning and rain. After spending quite a bit of time, he finally passed the cell area. His mental world was already like the ruins after a storm. These were negative emotions and mental pollution that high-level cultivators used to discuss people. They could easily torture a Qi refinement realm disciple until he went crazy. Even foundation establishment cultivators would have to spend 10 years to slowly recover. Even Jiang Li would need 5 seconds to clear this thing from his mind. Looking at the additional negative status on the interface, Jiang Li was about to delete it. Suddenly, his blood-light sword, Usura Sword Heart, suddenly darted out and swam around his mental world, absorbing the black water stains that scattered on the ground in circles. These negative emotions seemed to be nutrients that could develop the Usura Sword Heart. In this way, Jiang Li was not in a hurry to eliminate them. On the 7th level, there was a floating stone ball as the pagoda monument. As a new earth vein spirit essence entered, Jiang Li also knew that it was an eyeball. Jiang Li decisively made the earth vein spirit essence, left eye, last indefinitely. This spirit essence then fused into the stone person in his Qi Si. An eyeball appeared in the stone person's empty eye socket. Closing his right eye and only using his left eye, Jiang Li happily discovered that he could already vaguely see the earth vein energy. His earth spirit body was gradually becoming complete. This time, Jiang Li did not hesitate and directly chose to strike while the iron was hot. After the old man opened the 5 elements formation disc, he directly jumped in. The number of demonic cultivators on this level decreased drastically. There were only 5 people here. However, this level of the demon subduing pagoda was the most dangerous because these 5 people were all nascent soul cultivators on the same level as his master, Elder He. There was no signboard for introduction on their prison doors. It was unknown how Shu Mountain had captured them. When Jiang Li passed through the cell on this level, It was simply like holding onto a dilapidated wooden plank against the torrential waves in a storm. He summoned his 9 nether clone over and let the 9 nether clone with a golden core cultivation stand in front of him. He held onto the ancient tree and endured the violent storm and impact. The sword cultivator clone that had been recreated helped Jiang Li's main body move forward with difficulty. As for the newly created third parallel mind, which was still in a blank state, it raised its fearless dedication and silently endured most of the pollution that invaded the sea of consciousness. Chapter 199, Pagoda Spirit, Earth Spirit. When Jiang Li finally arrived at the pagoda monument on the 8th level with great difficulty, his eyes were already covered in blood vessels, and he felt a trace of exhaustion that he had not felt in a long time. Was this the power of nascent soul cultivators? Jiang Li suddenly recalled his master, Elder He. His entire body was covered in beast blood tattoos from head to toe, and he had a ferocious appearance that seemed as if he would fight anyone at any moment. However, he was exceptionally gentle towards his own people. In the scripture storage valley, he had personally helped Jiang Li train many times. However, from the beginning to the end, Elder He had never revealed his true aura in front of him. Even when he stood up for Jiang Li during the conflict with the Immortal Ascension Pavilion's Pavilion Master, he had deliberately blocked the other party's might and did not affect him at all. Now that he faced the 5 nascent soul demonic cultivators, he finally understood what fear was. Those 5 guys were clearly tied up and nailed to the ground. They should not be able to move even a finger. However, just one look was enough to kill. At this moment, his mental world seemed like a typhoon had passed through. Many ghosts that were absorbed and refined by him had been buried in the ground, but now they were uprooted as they swayed in the air. Jiang Li's mind unavoidably suffered some damage. Fortunately, the 9 nether clone blocked the front and blocked the frontal mental attack. The third parallel mind behind him suffered most of the mental pollution. As a result, the mental injuries Jiang Li's main body suffered were still relatively limited. He could roughly meditate a few times and recover. However, it was a pity that the newly born third parallel mind had suffered such a situation before it even had a chance to become human. From the core formation realm to the nascent soul realm, the mental pollution of hundreds of high-level demonic cultivators was simply unbearable. The parallel mind that was originally only the size of a palm had already grown to more than a meter tall. Jiang Li's appearance could still be seen from between his brows, but his entire body was a jet-black color, and his figure was even bloated and chubby. The things stuffed into the third parallel mind were not beautiful at all. They were all full of darkness, slaughter, and evil, the worst things in the world. It was almost worse than the last time. The sword cultivator clone had suffered from the blood of madness. Jiang Li originally wanted to throw it into the outside world and quickly end it, but he suddenly thought of something and did not choose to do so. He made it temporarily maintain this appearance and left it in the consciousness space. After recovering from his shock, Jiang Li looked at the pagoda monument on the 8th level. Sure enough, it was a stone ball that was floating in midair. "Senior Demon Subduing, thank you for your trouble." He cupped his hands and sat on the mat in front of the pagoda monument. The mat here was covered in a thick layer of dust. Clearly, it had not been used for a long time. The demon-subduing pagoda spirit looked at Jiang Li, and the expression under its white hair and beard became slightly strange. It was as if he had been looking forward to this for a long time. When he finally obtained it, he felt disbelief. He stretched out his hand and patted the stone ball. A strand of pure earth vein spirit essence was guided out from within, and it was passed through the chain to the back of the meditation cushion before finally being absorbed by Jiang Li. After modifying the status with ease, this spirit essence successfully fused with the earth spirit blessing. From the looks of it, the stone figurine was completely intact. However, Jiang Li could sense that there was still an empty space in the chest of the tiny stone figure. That was the final key. Jiang Li's tightly shut eyes slowly opened. His eyes seemed to have undergone a strange change. It was clear and heavy. If one looked closely, they might see 5 towering mountains in his eyes. When Jiang Li looked at the demon-subduing pagoda spirit again, it had already completely vanished. "Senior demon-subduing, are we still going to the 9th level?" Jiang Li smiled as if he did not notice anything. However, the white-haired elder did not seem to have the intention to continue pretending. "No, we can't go down anymore. Even I can't open the array formation below." He waved his hand, and the earth vein power that covered Jiang Li's body suddenly constricted and became extremely heavy. It connected with the surrounding earth vein energy and instantly bound him firmly on the spot. Suppressed by the power of the earth vein, added status, earth vein binding. "Senior demon subduing, what are you doing?" Jiang Li raised his brows with an innocent expression, as if he was really caught off guard. "Young friend Jiang Li, you already know, right? After you obtained my eyes, you should have seen them, right?" The white-clothed old man still had the appearance of an immortal, but his expression was no longer kind. I saw it very clearly. This is a pair of good eyes. This junior is deeply grateful." "Then, perhaps I should change the way I call you, Senior of the Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak." Just as the other party had said, after Jiang Li absorbed the 2 earth vein spirit essences that represented his eyes, his earth spirit body became even more complete, and the world before his eyes had already completely changed. The flowing earth vein power was visible in his eyes. At this moment in his eyes, the white-clothed elder who called himself the demon-subduing pagoda spirit was filled with the power of the earth vein. It was even richer and purer than the 8 pagoda monuments he had seen. The demon-subduing pagoda was indeed built using the earth vein of the 5 elements peak, but its essence should still be a construction-type artifact. It was only using an array formation to borrow the power of the earth vein. Even if it really became a pagoda spirit, it would definitely not be like this. Therefore, there was only one answer. This elderly man was not the demon-subduing pagoda spirit, but the earth vein spirit of the Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak. "HMPH, my name is Luoyun 5 Swords Peak, not Shu Mountain." "Kid, you're quite smart. Unfortunately, you realized it too late. Do you know who's locked in the 9th level of this pagoda?" The image of the white-robed elder of the Shu Mountain spirit gradually changed. Clusters of crystals grew out of his body. His human appearance was pierced, and his sage-like image quickly shattered. "Senior Swords Peak, you are probably the only one who can be imprisoned in the 9th level, being above the nascent soul realm." Jiang Li was still calm and unhurried as he sat there without moving. "That's right. Damn the Shu Mountain Sword Sect. They attacked my mountain for no reason and seized my spirit essence. They tore my body apart and suppressed me under the demon-subduing pagoda for 1,000 years. They made me and those demonic cultivators go against each other just to extract our strength, all for the forging of their flying swords." The more the Earth Spirit Elder spoke, the angrier he became. He called the Shu Mountain 5 Elements Peak the Shu Mountain Sword Sect, and was clearly very dissatisfied with them. He did not acknowledge them at all. "HMPH, if you were a Shu Mountain disciple, you would know that they do not have a martial granduncle pagoda spirit. Unfortunately, you are not. After 1,000 years, I still managed to infiltrate a portion of the demon-subduing pagoda's array formation. I've waited for countless years before I finally met you, a genius who could reach here." At this moment, the Earth Spirit had completely torn apart the appearance of a human, turning into a huge heart made of countless crystal clusters. This heart was formed by transparent crystals of 5 colors. When it beat, it even emitted soft and gorgeous lights. If the dwarves of Middle-earth saw this, they would probably abandon the Arkenstone on the spot and worship this earth vein heart. He was a portion of the earth vein spirit that had escaped from the 9th level of the demon-subduing pagoda, the heart. It was also where the intelligence of the Shu Mountain earth spirit resided. "Senior, you've told me so much. Aren't you afraid that I'll tell the people of Shu Mountain, or do you want to kill me now?" Jiang Li tried his best to put on a terrified expression. Any ordinary human would be able to tell that he was pretending. However, the Earth Vein spirit was not so scheming and thought that he was really afraid. "Don't worry, I won't kill you. You won't have a chance to speak again." Swoosh! A crystal ball suddenly grew out from the heart and stabbed directly into Jiang Li's body. Even with Jiang Li's defense, he was helpless against it and was ruthlessly pierced through. Jiang Li felt pain, but he still endured it and did not move. Following that, waves of energy surged into his body. In Jiang Li's qi, a similar earth vein heart began to gradually take shape and beat non-stop. This was the last piece of the puzzle that could complete the earth spirit blessing. This had always been Jiang Li's goal. Before he obtained it, he naturally could not give up halfway. From the beginning, he had never really trusted this so-called pagoda spirit. This was because his deception and acting skills were far inferior to any human swindler. An unfamiliar spirit was very enthusiastic towards him for no reason. Moreover, his words were very purposeful. In just a few words, he explained his origins and the reason for his appearance clearly. How could a normal person take the initiative to explain their situation without even asking anything? It was obvious that these words had been fabricated long ago. It revealed a desire to make people believe in him as soon as possible. Those who said this were most likely liars. The information they reported was most likely fake. Therefore, from the beginning, Jiang Li had been vigilant. Later on, he even deliberately tested the other party a few times and offended him neither lightly nor lightly. However, not only was this earth spirit not displeased, he even guided Jiang Li to find demon beast materials and used some small favors to gain trust. This was very illogical. His words and actions after that revealed his goal. Thus, how could Jiang Li really believe him? However, because Jiang Li wanted it and the other party wanted to give it to him, their goal had always been the same. Moreover, both sides were filled with confidence and felt that they would be the final winner. That was why they were so friendly until this point before finally falling out. In next to no time, the crystal heart in front of Jiang Li gradually weakened and vanished. A powerful heartbeat appeared in Jiang Li's body. The earth vein heart had already completely transferred to the qi in his body. Absorbing the earth vein spirit essence of the 5 elements peak, added status, earth vein spirit essence, heart. The corners of Jiang Li's mouth could not help but curl into a smile. Then, he pressed the minus button for 5 seconds on the negative status earth vein binding in the status bar. The negative status was eliminated, and the heavy restrictions on his body instantly vanished. Jiang Li stretched his back, raised his hand to support his head, and closed his eyes again. His consciousness had already landed on his qi. As soon as the heart took shape, it flew towards the rock person impatiently. The earth spirit of the 5 elements sword peak was very excited now. As long as he fused with the other 8 spirit essences in front of him, he could form a small-sized version of himself. Then he could snatch this disciple's body and escape secretly. Although he could not take away the power of his main body, nor could he take revenge on the powerful Shu Mountain sword sect, he could only find a new mountain range to settle down and cultivate from scratch. He had been locked up in the demon-subduing pagoda for too long. His spirit essence and consciousness were slowly worn down by the endless confrontation with the demonic cultivators. Although the 5 elements peak had a lot of resources, if this continued, as the earth vein spirit, he would probably slowly lose his intelligence and become a pure foundation that would be suppressed by Shu Mountain forever. Therefore, he could not wait any longer. There were simply too few geniuses at Jiang Li's level. He had to seize this opportunity and rely on Jiang Li's body to escape. If he went out this time, he was determined to find an inconspicuous small mountain to settle down. Otherwise, when he finally managed to develop the mountain, he would be robbed again in the blink of an eye. However, just as he collided with the rock person and wanted to fuse it completely, he discovered that he could not enter. After squeezing for a long time, he was actually bounced out again. What was going on? Previously, when Jiang Li was on the upper level of the pagoda, such a situation had also happened. It was clearly his spirit essence, so how could he not be able to fuse with it? Could it be that the Shu Mountain had done something to the demon-subduing pagoda? They had turned his power into theirs. The earth vein spirit was filled with grief and indignation. It was furious. This old man's pitiful body had been ruined to such an extent. At this moment, the earth spirit felt like something had happened to him, but it also felt like nothing had happened. He felt a little strange, but at this critical moment, he could not divert his attention to use it. The earth spirit pulled himself back and collided with the newly formed body again, but this time, it was unexpectedly successful. The beautiful earth vein heart formed from 5 colored crystals easily fused into the rock person. As the earth vein heart beat, the entire rock person seemed to come alive, becoming agile and full of vitality. More thick and majestic energy surged out, slowly and firmly modifying Jiang Li's body. Ha ha ha, I succeeded, I'm finally free. In his chi-si, the earth spirit laughed wildly and was about to attack and seize Jiang Li's body. However, he was shocked to discover that he could not move at all. What happened? What did you do to me? The laughter gradually turned into despair. The earth spirit, who had been plotting for more than 1,000 years, successfully completed his plan and escaped from the impregnable demon-subduing pagoda. However, he was too unlucky. He crashed into another prison, one that he could never escape from. Jiang Li shook his head. He had expected this. If there was anyone to blame, it was this earth spirit himself. The status he could provide was just too good to resist. Although this earth spirit blessing was a hidden danger, once the buff reached Jiang Li, he could forget about escaping. There were more than one life-threatening statuses on him. It had been such a long time since when had any backfired on him. So what if the earth vein spirit's will was hidden in the blessing? He could not change the blessing or eliminate it. He could only silently bless Jiang Li with tears in his eyes for the rest of his life. From the beginning, this earth spirit of the 5-element sword peak would not even have the chance to possess him. Earth Spirit Blessing 99. Nourishment of the Earth Spirit's essence will increase aptitude until it slowly reaches the Khanate realm. Great effect in foundation establishment allows the construction of the Earth 5 Elements Tao Foundation. Duration, Infinity, minus. The Earth Spirit Blessing status was already perfected, and the Earth Spirit body was no longer incomplete. Jiang Li stretched out his hand and pressed down on the eyeball. A strand of the power of the earth vein was easily extracted by him, and it transformed into a veil that enveloped his body. Learning the earth spirit's method, Jiang Li mixed the earth vein power with his surroundings. Jiang Li took a deep breath. It was time to leave. Chapter 200, Foundation Establishment. After passing through the location of the 5 nascent souls again, Jiang Li, who had already experienced it once, was clearly much more successful this time. After he returned to the ground, Jiang Li stepped on the air repeatedly and walked along the small passageway. Soon, he encountered the 5 elements formation disk that blocked his path. The authority given to him by Peak Master Wei was not enough to take effect here. At this moment, the Shu Mountain Earth Spirit was still wailing in his chi-si. Without him opening the door, the problem came. How could he return to the surface through this indestructible 5 elements formation disk? It was obviously not reliable to use his fists to smash it. The demon-subduing pagoda that was connected to the earth vein was something that even a nascent soul cultivator could not break. Jiang Li reckoned that even if he died here, he would not be able to break it, although he would not die from exhaustion anyway. Apart from brute force, was there any other way to pass through this place? There was. The old earth spirit had secretly corroded the array formation in the demon-subduing pagoda for more than 1,000 years. Although he could not accumulate the power to take revenge on Shu Mountain, it was enough to let him open a few small back doors in the demon-subduing pagoda. After all, in the original plan, After he seized Jiang Li's body, he had to think of a way to get out. With his flesh and blood body, he could no longer appear and disappear like the spiritual bodies. It would definitely be even more difficult to use the escape technique to travel. Therefore, the back door he left behind must be quite big. Although Jiang Li, who had already obtained the earth spirit body, did not have an earth attribute spiritual root and had never cultivated an earth attribute cultivation method, he could still rely on this physique to use a simple earth escape technique. What he needed to do now was find a gap that could allow him to escape. In Jiang Li's eyes, the towering Shu Mountain 5 Elements peak was reflected. In his vision, the flow of the earth vein power became clearer. It was hard to say how much the earth spirit body had increased Jiang Li's strength. The greatest help it gave him was still in the Tao of runic formations. In the cultivation world of the Great Mountain region, what kind of array formation was recognized as the most powerful? It was similar to the Shu Mountain 5 Elements peak and the Misty Mountain range. It combined the mountains and rivers and borrowed the power of heaven and earth to form a large array. With his talent in runes and array formations, coupled with this pair of eyes that could see the flow of the earth vein, this would undoubtedly make his formation path seem like a cheat. Compared to others, they had to calculate in detail before they could roughly guess the direction of the earth vein flow and carefully set up the array bit by bit. However, Jiang Li was able to directly see the earth vein clearly, and it was even to the extent that he was able to directly extract it from the ground. The advantage and convenience he was able to obtain when setting up a large-scale formation could simply not be described with words. In next to no time, Jiang Li noticed that within the complicated formation patterns of the 5 Elements formation, there was an earth vein energy that was different from the others. It was several times thicker than other earth vein energy, and it flowed in a completely different direction. Jiang Li's eyes lit up. It was here. He reached out and pressed down on that node. The earth vein power of the same source slowly seeped into it, following the direction of that array pattern and seeping his strength in bit by bit. Following that, the earth escape technique imbued with the earth spirit body activated. His figure was like toothpaste as he slowly squeezed into the flowing reverse formation pattern. Following the flow of the earth vein power, he shuttled through the 5 Elements array disk, and the scene he sensed was strange and varied. A moment later, a head appeared from the other side of the 5 Elements formation. Then, the entire body squeezed out bit by bit. After all, Jiang Li had never practiced earth escape or had an earth attribute spiritual root. He could not escape instantly like Shen Ruoshi from the heaven and earth hall. With the help of the rich earth vein power, the process was still very difficult. It was impossible to use it in battle. It was barely enough to drill a hole in the ground. It took him more than a minute to successfully squeeze past the array disk's obstruction and reach the 7th level. However, now that he had found a way, the rest was simple. Relying on this back door, after going up 2 more levels, Jiang Li had already returned to the 5th level. On the golden light pagoda statue in the outside world, the fake red dot had originally stopped on the meditation mat in front of the pagoda monument. Now that Jiang Li came up and walked around twice, that red dot overlapped with his true body, no longer having any obvious signs. From here, he could use the token to go up openly. When he finally returned to the ground, he was stunned. Jiang Li stood in a daze. When he saw the golden projection not far away, his heart skipped a beat. He thought to himself, did this demon-subduing pagoda actually have a tracking function? Then, wouldn't his tracks below be seen clearly? He did not dare to speak first. Fortunately, Shenshin Kyuhyua's words made him feel at ease. Senior brother, Jiang Li, you're really too impressive. You actually really reached the 5th level of the demon-subduing pagoda. That's something that no disciple from Shu Mountain has been able to do in the past hundreds of years. So they had only noticed that he reached the 5th level. Jiang Li heaved a sigh of relief without leaving a trace, and he instantly understood in his heart that it was definitely the earth spirit that had made preparations in advance to prevent him from being exposed. The other sword cultivator disciples by the side praised him successively, whereas Jiang Li was modest and only said that he was lucky. Jiang Li, your talent is extraordinary. The last person who could achieve this was our current generation sword head, Xianxia. When Jiang Li heard this name, he glanced at Xianxia. That was her grandfather. Xianxia's eyes were filled with worship. In her eyes, if he could do the same thing as her grandfather, wouldn't Jiang Li be as powerful as him? Originally, there was no standard for this level, but with an impressive predecessor as a comparison, it was different. The Shu Mountain Sword Head was the #1 combatant on the surface of the Great Mountain region. Jiang Li had accomplished the same thing as the other party. Didn't that mean that his future would be like Xianxia, standing at the peak of the cultivation world of the Great Mountain region? Jiang Li just did not know what their expressions would be like if they knew that he had actually already reached the 8th level and obtained the spirit essences of the entire 9 levels. After the demon subduing pagoda trial, these 10 Shu Mountain disciples still had to start foundation establishment. Peak Master Wei naturally did his best to invite Jiang Li to build his foundation in the Shu Mountain mystic realm with them. However, Jiang Li firmly rejected it. He already had his own plans for the foundation establishment's location. Riding the wood dragon Rayquaza, Jiang Li flew high in the sky until he could no longer see the towering 5 elements peak behind him. He patted the wooden dragon beneath him. Rayquaza immediately understood what he meant. It turned its head and crashed into a cloud beside it. Then, the huge wooden dragon disappeared. In the cloud, the 9 nether clone had been waiting for a long time. The yin burial coffin swelled up in front of him, and Jiang Li rode the wooden dragon into the coffin. After obtaining the earth spirit blessing, everything in his body that was already filled to the extreme began to stir. He had already reached the limit before breaking through and could no longer suppress it. The spatial artifact, yin burial coffin, was in a similar state like him. Jiang Li had invested countless materials and spiritual objects into this artifact, and it had already arrived at the critical point before breaking through. After the last push, it would be able to reach a new height. After entering the coffin space that he had not seen for a long time, the interior of the space had changed drastically compared to before. Not to mention the expansion of space, this coffin was almost changing every day. However, unlike the originally relatively empty space, there was a layer of spirit stones, spirit mines, and a large number of high-grade spiritual materials on the bottom of the yin burial space. There were really no fake goods, the floor was full of them. He had even bought an extremely expensive blood-sucking wood tree. With the income of Green Mountain residents during this period of time, together with robbing the 100 Tempering Mountain and some other transactions, he gathered a considerable amount of wealth during this period of time. Now, it was all piled up in the yin burial coffin. In addition, in the center of the coffin space was an inverted ancient tree, the 9 nether wood. In the deepest corner of the coffin, there was a huge corpse with 3 heads and 6 arms sitting on the skeleton throne. Its entire body was filled with a chaotic aura. A small high-grade profound rank yin burial coffin actually gathered so many evil beings. If it did not advance, it would probably be unable to contain these guys. Fortunately, the requirements for advancement were very close. After this period of accumulation, the number of ghosts in the coffin had already reached 990,000, which was close to the limit. The last 10,000 ghosts were in a soul-capturing bag beside it. Jiang Li sat down in the coffin and made the final adjustments. In the outside world, the 9 nether clone executed the maximum speed of a golden core cultivator and flew in a certain direction. The scenery below quickly changed. He flew past the heavy mountains, crossed the steep mountains, saw the Mother River, and flew past the southern Seal Kingdom. A moment later, he plunged into the sand. This desert was lifeless and had no vitality anywhere. In the region of the Great Mountain Range covered in emerald green mountains, it was very abnormal for such a desert to suddenly appear. When Jiang Li first came here, he saw that the barren plants of the southern Seal Kingdom were turning yellow. The country was leaning against the desert, and from plants to animals, all of them revealed lifelessness. Back then, he was a little curious. Later on, because of the one in the underwater graveyard and the massacre of the golden core sword cultivators, he naturally paid attention to this place. With his increasingly high status, it was no longer difficult for him to understand some of the secrets. After specially asking the sect, he learned that this place had a little connection to him. The speed of golden core cultivators was very fast. It took slightly more than 2 days to arrive here from the Shu Mountain region. Jiang Li relied on the method of observing the earth vein to cross the sandy terrain and fly to the center of this desert. This was a dried-up huge basin, and it was also where the desert's earth veins gathered. There was no oasis under the basin, but a twisted and strange forest. These trees were all withered trees, but under the effect of the earth veins' extreme yin-land, although the withered trees died, they still did not stop growing. From above, in the center of all the twisted withered trees, one could see an extremely huge and charred tree stump. This was the corpse of a 1,000-year-old demon king, ghostwood tree spirit, who had once surpassed nascent soul. Its avatar was as tall as the sun, and its roots sank into the depths of the netherworld. Jiang Li's initial cultivation method, the ghostwood art, was copied from the tree stump after the 1,000-year-old ghostwood tree spirit died. Although he had already switched to the 9 Nether Dao scripture, both of their attributes were yin wood. The place where the 1,000-year-old demon king, the ghostwood tree spirit, died was naturally the best place for him to establish his Dao foundation. The 9 Nether clone threw out the coffin. After entering it, the surface of the coffin sank into the ground like it was soaked in blood. Due to having absorbed too much blood during this period of time, the coffin turned from the initial grayish-black color to the current blood-red color. Under Jiang Li's control, the yin burial coffin passed through the thick earth layer and entered the earth vein node before slowly stopping. On the ground, the array formation that had been prepared previously began to operate at this moment, concealing the aura of this basin as much as possible. In the coffin space, Jiang Li opened his eyes and stretched out his hand to open the soul-capturing bag at the side. 10,000 ghosts immediately surged out from within. He also threw away dozens of blood gourds. A large amount of high-grade demon beast blood poured out, forming a large pool of blood around him before slowly gathering together. The final investment of the ghost finally satisfied the final advancement conditions of the yin burial coffin. The entire coffin space began to tremble violently. The yin burial spiritual qi inside began to spin like a hurricane, carrying countless ghosts as if it was the end of the world. The surrounding earth vein power absorbed it and surged over endlessly, pushing the coffin to begin its transformation. Jiang Li did not stay idle. He carefully took out a translucent white spiritual fruit from a jade box and stuffed it into his mouth without any hesitation. This was the legendary Dao Foundation spiritual fruit that Jiang Li had obtained from winning first place in the Great Mountain Cultivator competition. Consume the Dao Foundation spiritual fruit. Added status, Dao Essence Circulation. Dao Essence Circulation, surrounded by a trace of Dao Essence, automatically optimizes and replenishes the Dao Foundation. Duration, 10 minutes minus plus. The flavor of the Dao Foundation spiritual fruit did not come from the taste on the tip of his tongue. Instead, it was more like the shock of touching a spiritual fruit. It was as if all the details of the Tao of heaven and earth were revealed before his eyes. As the saying went, if one heard the Tao in the morning, they could die in the evening with satisfaction. The profundity of the great Tao could not be described with words. This was the power of the Tao Foundation spiritual fruit. There was a trace of the extremely subtle essence of the great Tao hidden within. What were cultivators most afraid of when they embarked on the path of cultivation? The worst thing was to take the wrong path. If one made a mistake when establishing their foundation at the beginning of the great Tao, they might not be able to see much of a problem initially. However, as his cultivation increased, the path ahead would become more difficult and complicated. 100 years later, or 1,000 years later, when one was about to ascend the path to immortality, they might discover that no matter what, they were unable to take that crucial step. After asking around, they realized that their initial great Tao foundation was wrong. That would be true despair. If one's Tao foundation was unstable, not to mention becoming an immortal or Buddha, it was very likely that one would suffer from qi deviation and die. However, with this trace of Tao essence, it would be completely different. This trace of Tao essence was equivalent to the official cheat of the heavenly Tao. It could clearly tell a cultivator the mistakes and flaws during the foundation establishment realm and change and optimize them. After pressing for 5 seconds, the subtle Tao essence swimming in his body no longer looked like they were about to disappear at any moment. Instead, they seemed to be swimming even more happily. After the preparations were completed, the foundation establishment realm officially began. Jiang Li pointed forward, and the trunk of the 9 nether would automatically split open, revealing the humanoid space that should have been where Green Mountain Ascetic was. He flew over and sat cross-legged on the ground, using the same posture as before to enter the human-shaped hole. With the spiritual root of heaven and earth, the 9 nether wood branch, as a support, the foundation of the 9 nether Tao scripture was formed. This was qi. A few roots of the 9 nether wood stretched out and fell to the ground. In the pool of blood that had just gathered, it began to draw out the blood diagram of countless beasts that were mixed together from the blood gourd. With the blood of the 100 beasts, he could use the ancient body refinement technique to condense the beast blood tattoo and establish the foundation of the beast blood diagram. This was body. Jiang Li then sent the first parallel mind and third parallel mind into the bodies of the sword cultivator clone and the Usura's corpse, and together with the 9 nether clone, they formed 3 completely different mental worlds as support. They surrounded Jiang Li's core consciousness and continuously provided nutrients. With the Usura, 9 nether, and sword cultivator, the 3 of them formed the foundation of the Bodhisattva Heart Sutra. This was spirit. In Jiang Li's qi, the small stone person emitted an endless stream of pure earth vein spirit essence. The intelligent spirit inside was ruthlessly extracted. In the consciousness space, he turned into a stone statue of the same appearance and smashed into the ground, sinking deeply into it. The originally pale and fake land gradually turned into soil and rocks. The granules were clear and thick. Using the earth spirit of the Shu Mountain 5 elements peak as a sacrifice, he gathered the earth vein spirit essence and built the foundation of the 5 elements immortal mountain. This was earth. From Green Mountain Ascetic's mouth, a round and golden pill flew out, passing through the outer clothing of the 9 netherwood roots and landing in Jiang Li's stomach. The heavenly lightning indestructible zombie golden core appeared in his mental world like a scorching sun. Then, the power of life and death of the indestructible zombie golden core separated towards the left and right, and what surged out was a surging tribulation cloud of the heavenly Tao. The terrifying tribulation lightning within rumbled endlessly, revealing boundless heavenly might. Using the power of life and death to lock down the power of the heavenly punishment, and preserving the heavenly lightning in the sky, he built the foundation of the life and death tribulation lightning. This was heaven. Heaven, earth, spirit, body, and qi. These 5 components combined into one, and the trace of Tao essence acted as the best lubricant amongst them, causing these 5 forces to not have the slightest conflict and grow together savagely in Jiang Li's body.